Chapter 48-44. Fire Phoenix King. Why are you here? Xiaohua was also surprised. He looked at Fire Phoenix King in confusion. Fire Phoenix King smiled and said, I'm here to tell Xiao Xing and Huang Sheng about the space passage in the Dawn Rain continent. Hearing Fire Phoenix King's words, Xiaohua really felt like he was at the end of the road. He almost couldn't believe his ears and asked, What? You know about the space passage to the Dawn Rain continent? Yes, why didn't you say so earlier? Huang Tong was also confused. Although the Fire Phoenix King had already appeared, she still looked hesitant. She replied, To be honest with Xiao Sheng and Huang Sheng, I don't know if this passageway is located in the Dawn Rain continent. However, from how much the Swift Cherry Supreme Sage values it, it should be related to the Dawn Rain continent. Is the Dawn Rain continent? Xiaohua took a deep breath. He believed Fire Phoenix King's words a little more. However, he still asked, What do you mean? Actually, Fire Phoenix King smiled and said, When Xiao Xing showed off his power in the Gale Abyss, I was not in the spiritual realm. I was entrusted by the Dawn Rain continent I came to the Origin Cave to find out some secrets that only she knew about. Of course, she did not tell me what the secrets were, and I did not intend to ask. However, when I heard that Xiao Xing and Huang Xing wanted to go to the Dawn Rain continent, I suddenly realized that this place is related to the Dawn Rain continent. It must be because Xiao Xing and the others broke through the realm and attracted the Dawn Rain continent's attention. She sent me here to take a look. I understand. Xiaohua cupped his hands and said, That's why Fire Phoenix King asked me to go to the Origin realm to ask the Dawn Rain continent. I thank you. Sigh, it's a pity that the Dawn Rain continent did not agree, so I wanted to hide this from you. Fire Phoenix King sighed and said, However, after thinking about it, I felt that Xiao Xing, Huang Sheng, and even the Phoenix King would rather fall into the strange realm than return to the Dawn Rain continent to save billions of lives. Such a feat. I had to help, so I waited here. Fire Phoenix King wants to do something the Rushing Cherry Grand Sage doesn't want to see? Huang Tong couldn't believe it. Of course, I won't tell you the exact location of the passageway. Fire Phoenix King smiled. Also, I would like to ask Phoenix Saint a question. As long as Phoenix Saint can tell me, I will tell you where it is. No problem, Fire Phoenix King, please speak. Huang Tong agreed without hesitation. I heard that not long after Huang Sheng appeared in the 10,000 Demon Realm, the colorful Phoenix King sent thousands of Phoenix envoys to the Bo Wasteland to welcome Huang Sheng. I wonder how she knew about Huang Sheng's appearance. And why is she looking for Huang Sheng? Fire Phoenix King's question was not out of Huang Tong and Xiaohua's expectations. Huang Tong smiled and said, It's very simple. It's because colorful Phoenix King has seen the saint rankings and knows that we have appeared. As for how she knew we were in the wasteland, that's not something we can know. As for why she came to us, she didn't make it clear. She only asked if Huang Sheng and Feng Xing knew her, if it was him, and who was him? As for why colorful Phoenix King is looking for him, she didn't say. Xiaohua didn't hesitate and directly answered, Phoenix Sage and Phoenix Sage naturally aren't that he, so they were also confused. I was in a hurry to return to Dawn Rain continent, so I tactfully declined the invitation of the colored Phoenix King to head to Phoenix Shrine. So that's how it is. Xiaohua didn't understand who the colorful Phoenix King was referring to, but Fire Phoenix King understood immediately. Who is this him? Huang Tong asked curiously. How could Fire Phoenix King tell him? Just as she was about to refuse, she suddenly had a thought and smiled. Phoenix Envoy can ask, but after I tell you, Phoenix Saint has to promise me one thing. How could Huang Tong be fooled? He smiled and said, If that's the case, then forget it. Then I won't say more. Fire Phoenix King smiled and whispered. Xiaohua's heart moved and asked, Can Fire Phoenix King tell me what Phoenix Saint has to promise? It's nothing. Fire Phoenix King hesitated for a moment and said, I just want to tell you about him, and ask you to kill him, when you see him. Forget it. Hearing this, Xiaohua waved his hand and said, We don't even know who him is, so how can we kill him? Let's not talk about this. It's nothing. Fire Phoenix King smiled when she heard this. That him is most likely dead, or else colorful Phoenix King would have found him long ago. Damn it. Huang Tong scolded, It's up to you whether you want to say it or not, but why do you always swallow your words? This is a serious matter, and it's not something you and I can get involved in. Fire Phoenix King said hurriedly. Rather than knowing, it's better not to know. I didn't say it because I was thinking for Xiao Sheng and Phoenix Saint. We are going to the Dawn Rain continent anyway, so these secrets are nothing, Xiaohua said with a smile. It's just an old human with the surname Wen, Fire Phoenix King said anxiously. Even I don't know what he looks like. An old human with the surname Wen? Fire Phoenix King didn't mean it, but Xiaohua was interested. He immediately thought of the celestial emissary from the celestial realm. It seemed that in the 10,000 demon realm, other than this Shin human, he had never seen any other human race. Could it be that this old human with the surname Wen had the same origin as the immortal emissary with the surname Shen? What surname Wen and Li? Huang Tong said impatiently. We have never seen them before. Fire Phoenix King, quickly tell us the location of that place. Fire Phoenix King got what she wanted to know, so she wasn't stingy. She raised her phoenix claw and pointed into the distance. That place is in that direction. As for where and how far it is, forgive me for not being able to say. I hope Xiao Sheng and Phoenix Saint are lucky enough. Goodbye. With that, Fire Phoenix King didn't stay any longer. She spread her wings and flew into the sky, disappearing in an instant. Damn it, what's the difference between that and not saying anything? Huang Tong scolded in a low voice. Fire Phoenix King's move, who knows how many regions fell into it? Xiaohua didn't answer. Instead, he looked at the place where Fire Phoenix King disappeared. He stroked his chin and said, It seems that Fire Phoenix King is very familiar with this space. He came here more than once so he could escape into the void and avoid the attack of the void storm. Huang Tong understood what Xiaohua was saying and agreed. He has long wanted to use what we know to find out the secret of Fire Phoenix King. That's why he didn't go to the original realm but stayed nearby. He must have seen Divine Mother Peacock or Fire Phoenix King earlier and knew that we came to the Origin Cave. That's why he made this deal with us before we did. The problem is that he has a good impression of the Swift Cherry Grand Sage. How could he do something against the Swift Cherry Grand Sage? Xiaohua still didn't understand. Huang Tong laughed and pointed into the distance with her wings. With just a point, who knows where the so-called space passage is? And Fire Phoenix King said it clearly. He is just guessing and can't be taken seriously. Using this kind of meaningless information in exchange for Fire Phoenix King's secret, isn't that better than anything else? That old man surnamed Wen, is he also a celestial envoy in human form? Xiaohua frowned. Who knows? Huang Tong shrugged. This has nothing to do with us. Let's hurry and find the space passage. We have to find it wherever we go. Why don't we go in that direction? Xiaohua looked in the direction Fire Phoenix King pointed and smiled. Let's go. Although I don't believe Fire Phoenix King, I also believe that he can't set up any traps. Huang Tong flapped her wings and rushed into the gap between the whirlpools. Unfortunately, Huang Tong couldn't see Fire Phoenix King in the void. Otherwise, she would be able to see some clues from Fire Phoenix King's smile. The Origin Cave was really boundless. Even if there was no problem with the direction Fire Phoenix King pointed, as Xiaohua and Huang Tong went deeper, strange space whirlpools began to appear from time to time. The suction of these space whirlpools was just like what Peacock Mother said. Sometimes, it was so strong that it was impossible to resist. Xiaohua and Huang Tong were lucky enough to escape from danger several times. However, after flying in for more than 10 days, they didn't see the space passage Fire Phoenix King mentioned. Helpless, Xiaohua put Huang Tong back into his body. At the same time he asked Feng Wu Thunder Immortal, and the others to come out of the space and enter their bodies. If they encountered multiple space passages and couldn't avoid them, they would each enter one and leave it to fate. On this day Xiaohua had just used the thunder escape technique to avoid a space crack that was tens of thousands of feet wide. Before he could catch his breath, he saw that the space crack was shrinking and suddenly violently swelled. This swelling was different from the space crack. It was like boiling water that covered the entire Origin Cave. Oh no! Xiaohua was shocked. Because in this swelling, the strong power of the realm ruthlessly seeped out. It was like a guillotine that blocked him from all sides. However, before Xiaohua could use the thunder escape technique to escape into the gap of the realm power, he saw that within 10,000 miles of the space, 9 knot-like things appeared. Above these knots, 9 huge space cracks were entangled together like pythons. One end of these space cracks went straight into the depths of the Origin Cave. In the light, the silhouettes of some mountains and forests were revealed. This is a space vein? When Xiaohua saw this, he couldn't help but be overjoyed. However, this space vein seems to be tangled together. Could this be the space passage to the Dawn Rain continent? Fire Phoenix King didn't lie to us? Chapter 48-45. Just as Xiaohua had this thought, boom 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 boom. 9 earth-shaking noises came from the 9 spatial nodes. The 81 spatial cracks opened up like awakened pythons. Each spatial tunnel was filled with irresistible spatial power, filled with the laws of the world, and rushed towards Xiaohua. 9 spatial tunnels? Xiaohua suddenly realized, damn, I understand now. This is an innate array formed by 9 spatial tunnels. That Fire Phoenix King stopped me, pointed me in the right direction, and calculated the right time to make me fall into this spatial array. And the 9 spatial tunnels formed by this spatial array definitely don't lead to the Dawn Rain continent. If it wasn't the Fast Cherry Sage who asked Fire Phoenix King to frame me, then Fire Phoenix King acted on his own accord. Furthermore, Fire Phoenix King already knew that I was going to fall into a spatial tunnel with my clones, so he prepared these 9 spatial tunnels and wanted us to fall into one each. This Fire Phoenix King is despicable. How powerful were the 9 spatial tunnels formed? Even if Xiaohua was a 10th grade essence power, he couldn't resist at all. Needless to say, everything within several tens of thousands of li was confined by the power of this world. Xiaohua couldn't escape even if he wanted to. Moreover, this confinement also tightly bound Xiaohua's body. His previous plan of sending his clones to various worlds was simply for naught. The 9 spatial tunnels fell like 9 huge ribbons and hit the space above Xiaohua's head. The space instantly split into 9 huge tunnels, and each tunnel had the same strange laws of heaven and earth surging out, competing with the laws of heaven and earth of the 10,000 demon realm. Xiaohua's golden body floated into one of the tunnels like a fallen leaf. Although Xiaohua tried his best to activate his divine ability, the power of thunder on the surface of his body flickered like fireflies. However, this passive world breaking was several times more powerful than the active world breaking from the 3 continents to the 10,000 demon realm. Xiaohua felt like his golden body was being crushed by a huge millstone. Not to mention releasing his clones, he couldn't even move his fingers. Xiaohua had just seen the boundary barrier, the swaying light and shadow, and the endless power of the world behind him. It was like 2 fierce generals fighting fiercely. At the same time, the power of heaven and earth gathered in Xiaohua's body. The impact of the laws of the world was far greater than the power of space. Xiaohua knew that his body couldn't resist, so he simply released his mind and tried his best to use the different laws of space to resist the confrontation of the laws of the 2 mature boundaries. Seeing that the laws of the 10,000 demon realm and the laws of the unknown boundary were like 2 boundless oceans, and the laws of his own space were like a pool of water, far from being able to resist, Xiaohua's heart moved. He naturally thought of the primordial spirit entrustment technique he had obtained before. At this time, his body was difficult to maintain, and this primordial spirit entrustment technique was like a life-saving straw. Xiaohua didn't hesitate to silently recite the incantation, and quickly released his primordial spirit, cooperating with his mind to spread above the laws of heaven and earth of the 2 worlds. Every primordial spirit entrustment technique was to separate a little bit of the primordial spirit from the primordial spirit, just like the demon race's external incarnation technique. The primordial spirit was like a seed that was planted outside the body. Magic tools were the common choice of Dao sect cultivators. Similarly, the quality of the magic tool also determined the brilliance of the primordial spirit entrustment technique. The Grand Mist Ancestor had a great opportunity and entrusted his primordial spirit to the Yin-Yang Illustration Handbook. Because the Yin-Yang Illustration Handbook was an ancient magic tool, if the Grand Mist Ancestor succeeded in refining it, he would be able to obtain an extremely long lifespan and many more divine abilities. Similarly, there were more people who entrusted their primordial spirit to other things such as holy beasts, array diagrams, innate restrictions, and so on. It was said that people with great opportunities and divine abilities were able to entrust their primordial spirit to the void and entrust it to faith. However, people like Xiaohua who entrusted his primordial spirit to the laws of heaven and earth were unheard of. After all, the so-called void was just a void. A piece of void was still a void, and the void of a world was still a void. When one's comprehension of the space laws reached a certain level, building a small nest in a familiar void like an ant wouldn't be considered shocking. As for faith, it was even easier. Of course, this ease was relative. Without the approval of faith, wanting to entrust a trace of one's primordial spirit to the faith was harder than ascending to the heavens. Looking at the laws of heaven and earth that Xiaohua wanted to entrust his primordial spirit to, these laws were born from heaven and earth, and were like a boundless sea. Every strand of law seemed insignificant, but every strand of law represented heaven and earth. It was almost impossible for a person's will to surpass heaven and earth. Moreover, what Xiaohua was facing now wasn't just a strand of heaven and earth's law. Every strand of heaven and earth's law was connected to the array of the entire world. How could a person's will be entrusted? However, Xiaohua's primordial spirit and mind had long been integrated, and Xiaohua's mind had long been integrated with the various immature worlds in the space. Fundamentally speaking, his primordial spirit had been branded with the world's law. Previously, he didn't have the opportunity, so he didn't know how to entrust his primordial spirit. Now, at the critical moment of life and death, he released his primordial spirit. That primordial spirit was really like a huge tentacle, slowly touching the chaotic world's law. Boom boom boom. Xiaohua looked a little anxious. Wherever his primordial spirit passed, whether it was the world's law of the 10,000 demon realm or the world's law of the unknown world, it was as if they had seen their mortal enemy. They all produced a counterattack stronger than thunder, destroying these primordial spirit tentacles in an instant. Xiaohua's mind was greatly shocked, and he suddenly escaped from the void. The unspeakable tearing pain on his body was born again. Xiaohua looked at his somewhat blurred body that had been torn apart, and also felt the crisis in his Naiwan palace, middle Dantian and lower Dantian. He didn't dare to be negligent, and hurriedly calmed his mind and carefully released his primordial spirit again. This time Xiaohua learned his lesson. He didn't directly touch the world's law of the 10,000 demon realm and the unknown world, but first integrated with the few space laws on his body. The world's law of the 10,000 demon realm and the world's law of the unknown world collided with each other. Xiaohua's own space law was weak, and gradually entangled with these two kinds of laws in this collision. As the collision slowly grew stronger, Xiaohua's primordial spirit also slowly touched the two different worlds' laws. When Xiaohua was in danger, the entire space channel didn't stop forming, nor did it stop penetrating. Xiaohua's broken body drifted further and further in this stormy world's law battle. Every time he drifted a certain distance, his physical body would disappear a little. However, the strange thing is, just like when Xiaohua's physical body was destroyed by the immortal shuttle in human form, not a single drop of blood flowed out from Xiaohua's physical body. Even the many doppelgangers that existed in Xiaohua's body couldn't be seen. However, Xiaohua clearly felt that whether it was the Feng Wu that was separated from the demon body, the Huang Tong that was separated from the demon body's shadow, the immortal Yun that was separated from the meridians, or even the demon venerable murder that was formed by the blood shadow technique, they all existed in a strange form. They seemed to also be entrusted with the world's law, and also seemed to have become a part of the space. They seemed to have become an existence that even Xiaohua couldn't describe. After an unknown period of time, the pressure between the worlds was so great that Xiaohua's primordial spirit entrustment technique couldn't bear it. Xiaohua's primordial spirit entrustment technique had just reached the next level. Finally, Xiaohua couldn't bear it anymore, but he felt his vision turn black, and he lost consciousness again. Xiaohua was in a predicament. Outside the origin cave, Fire Phoenix King, who had been staying nearby, laughed. He looked at the layers of spatial hurricanes that were several times stronger than before, and he couldn't help but laugh secretly. Phoenix Sage, don't blame me. Who asked you to walk together with Fire Phoenix King? Of course, I didn't hide anything from you. The Swift Cherry Grand Sage asked me to come and explore that place. He wanted to see if you could break into the world from there. This 9 elements realm breaking is also formed naturally. It's the shock before the world passage is formed. As for where this space passage leads to, the Swift Cherry Grand Sage didn't say, and I don't know either. However, I do know that the 9 elements realm breaking force is not something that any great saint of the demon clan can withstand. Even the Xixin Grand Sage and the Swift Cherry Grand Sage can't. Therefore, even if you can avoid the shock of the world passage, you can't return to the 10,000 demon realm. Oh, even if you can return to the 10,000 demon realm, so what? Everything is your own choice. What does it have to do with me? I still have to find a chance to tell the Swift Cherry Grand Sage about this. Maybe. Thinking of this, a faint smile appeared on Fire Phoenix King's face. As the smile appeared, Fire Phoenix King spread her wings. Her demon body broke into the void and disappeared. Fire Phoenix King left. In another world far away in a dense forest, the calm space suddenly began to swell. It was as if a huge flame was burning in the void. Then the swell expanded uncontrollably. The ancient trees within 100 miles were all turned into powder by the swell. After half a cup of tea's worth of time, a strange sound came out from the drum. Poof! The oppressive sound of something breaking through the air rang out again. Xiaohua's broken body flew out from the void like a meteor streaking across the sky, crashing into a mountain range in the distance. Behind Xiaohua, a wave of remnant world passage like a scythe cut through the forest, the hills, and even the towering mountains. Wherever the world passage passed, everything was destroyed and annihilated. Boom boom boom. As for Xiaohua, he broke through more than 10 mountains. Finally, at the edge of the destruction of the world passage, he fell into an extremely hidden mountain range. At this time, the mountain range was shrouded in darkness. There was not a trace of starlight in the sky. The brilliance of Xiaohua breaking through the world passage was just a flash. The sound was earth-shattering, but this place was obviously a barren place. It did not attract much attention. When the world passage of the 10,000 demon realm was destroyed by the unknown world passage, everything was hidden in darkness. Darkness, other than darkness, there was only darkness. Gift it and thank you for all your support. Chapter 48-46. Unknowingly, Xiaohua had woken up. He could no longer sense where his physical body was. All he could see was darkness. Xiaohua couldn't figure out if he had broken the boundary, or if he had already fallen, or if he was still floating in the void. In short, everything was dark. Other than his spirit being lively and his thoughts being agile, he couldn't sense anything else. Damn it. Xiaohua couldn't help but curse. Why am I so embarrassed every time I break the boundary? I heard from that Xie Tong, who was only an Earth stage powerhouse, broke the boundary so elegantly that there was no obstruction at all. Why am I so unlucky? Right, Dai easily went from the 10,000 demon realm to the Dawn Rain continent. Xiaohua, a dignified great sage of the human race, actually had such twists and turns. Where is the justice? After complaining for a moment, Xiaohua hurriedly looked for Huang Tong and Feng Wu, where the space was. Unfortunately, this time was different from the last time when he went from the 3 continents to the 10,000 demon realm. Xiaohua himself didn't have any dizziness, but his spirit had long been exhausted. Since his physical body couldn't sense it, Huang Tong and Feng Wu's doppelgangers were also nowhere to be found. As for the space, Xiaohua vaguely sensed some aura, but his spirit couldn't touch it. The space seemed to be lost in the gap between the 10,000 demon realm and this unknown world. It was still floating in the vast power of the world. What was even more strange was that Xiaohua couldn't clearly perceive the location of his Naiwan Palace, Middle Dantian and Lower Dantian. He also didn't know the situation of his nebula nascent soul and hundreds of scattered nascent souls. Damn it. Xiaohua cursed again. He was extremely speechless. If it's cultivation or seclusion, I'm not afraid of such a scene. I'll just treat it as falling into the heavens prison again. But this kind of floating in the void takes time. I can wait, but the 3 continents can't. A 10,000 demon realm took a few decades. I don't have much time left. Moreover, I still don't know where I am. The void? So, how can I get out of the void? How can I find the space passage to the Dawn Rain continent? Thinking of this, Xiaohua once again felt hatred in his heart. Damned Fire Phoenix King, he actually dared to plot against me. His thoughts were the same as Fire Phoenix King's. After all, Fire Phoenix King didn't hide anything, and even said that this place was extremely dangerous. Everything he thought of was just a guess. Even if that's the case, he still has the intention to kill me. Xiaohua coldly snorted. If I can't reach the Dawn Rain continent this time and return to the 10,000 demon realm, I will be the first to kill Fire Phoenix King. Next, I'll interrogate the Swift Cherry Grand Sage. However, there was no panacea for regret in this world. Xiaohua merely thought about it. For a cultivator with principles like him, unless it was the last moment, he might not be able to force others to do something. Another dozen or so days passed and Xiaohua began to sense his body. Strands of heaven and earth yuan qi slowly gathered and strands of flesh and blood began to take shape. This made Xiaohua feel somewhat at ease. This was because the presence of heaven and earth yuan qi meant that the possibility of him being in the void was reduced. But at the same time, because he wasn't in the void, Xiaohua could only be in another unknown world. If Xiaohua wanted to return to the 10,000 demon realm, it would be equally difficult. Xiaohua's divine sense had been born, but the speed of growth was extremely slow. It was as if the divine sense had been attacked by the laws of 2 different worlds and was seriously injured. However, Xiaohua clearly sensed that this reborn divine sense was incomparably thick and contained the obscure laws of heaven and earth. Compared to the previous divine sense, not only was there a difference in quantity, but there were even some changes in essence. Since his divine sense could be released, although it wasn't far, Xiaohua could already understand the situation he was in. This was a place that seemed to be covered with mountain rocks. These mountain rocks were much larger than what Xiaohua usually saw. Many of them were still neat like a collapsed house. And Xiaohua was lying between the cracks of the rocks, and his head was facing down. However, this wasn't the most serious thing. The most serious thing was Xiaohua's body. Xiaohua's body was almost completely collapsed, and now it was rapidly being reconstructed under the influence of heaven and earth yuan qi. However, without Feng Wu's blood essence, Xiaohua's body reconstruction relied on heaven and earth yuan qi, and the speed was too slow. This trip to the 10,000 demon realm has cost me a lot. Xiaohua thought with a wry smile, not to mention other things, just my body has been destroyed twice. Especially under the attack of the immortal messenger's human form, my soul was almost destroyed. If this Xiao didn't hide my primordial spirit in the space, if the immortal shuttle didn't leave this Xiao's body, the consequences would be unimaginable. This time this Xiao's body seems to be slowly recovering, and there won't be any major problems. But what about Huang Tong, Feng Wu and the others? They won't be destroyed, right? Thinking of this, Xiaohua curled his lips again. Feng Wu had the heavenly phoenix. Even if Xiaohua's soul was destroyed, that guy wouldn't be destroyed. Since Feng Wu would be fine, Huang Tong and Thunder Immortal would also be fine, right? The problem is, Xiaohua was puzzled, where did they go? Could it be that they were separated from this Xiao? In another few hundred years, thousands of years, will they appear in the immortal realm, in the Demon League? And this Xiao's space has also been lost, do I have to find it again? While his thoughts were running wild, Xiaohua spent a few more days. Although there was heaven and earth yuan qi, there was no sun or moon. Xiaohua already had a judgment in his heart, and he couldn't help but start to calculate again, this unknown world. Sai, if there is no accident, it should be the night spirit world. From here to the Dawn Rain continent, I don't know if there is any space passage, and I don't know what night spirit I will encounter. If this Xiao wants to rush back to the Dawn Rain continent as soon as possible, I'm afraid there will be some problems. At this moment, Xiaohua's divine sense could already extend for several kilometers. Just as he was thinking, Xiaohua was stunned again. Because wherever his divine sense reached, there were actually some indistinct and tough restrictions that blocked his divine sense. Moreover, the fluctuations produced by these restrictions were very familiar to Xiaohua. It was the fluctuations of a Dao formation. It can't be? How can there be a Dao formation in the night spirit world? Could this be the Dawn Rain continent? Oh, no matter what, this is the Dao celestial world? Xiaohua was excited, but in a moment he was disheartened again. It can't be the Dawn Rain continent, because the Swift Cherry Grand Sage said clearly that there is only one space passage from the 10,000 demon world to the Dawn Rain continent, and this Xiao obviously entered 9. Moreover, from the power of this restriction, the person who set up the formation seems to have strength beyond the 9th grade of Essence Qi. The Dawn Rain continent, or even the Immortal Alliance, it is unlikely that there is such a cultivator. It can only be the 10,000 demon world, or the night spirit world, or the Dao celestial world, where the laws of heaven and earth are higher than the Dawn Rain continent, where there is such a cultivator. No, it seems that the laws of the Dao celestial world are also lower than the 10,000 demon world. This world is most likely the night spirit world. Of course, if I want to see if it is the Dawn Rain continent, I just need to see if there is any change in the heaven and earth yuan qi. Unfortunately, this Xiao doesn't have any divine ability now and can't sense space. How can I check? This Xiao's life is bitter. Boom, boom. Just as Xiaohua was complaining, a series of rumbling sounds resounded from outside the restriction. Haha, there is someone. Oh, it could also be the night spirit world's demon spirits breaking the formation. Xiaohua was overjoyed. He knew in his heart that he probably broke through the space outside the world and attracted the attention of others. Since there is a human or demon spirit, no matter what it is a joyous matter for Xiaohua. The worst thing is that Xiaohua can ask a simple question, unlike the 10,000 demon world, where he flew from the edge of the wasteland to the seaside like a headless fly. If his luck was bad and he changed direction, he would probably still be flying towards the edge of the world, right? Unfortunately, the roar sounded very weak, and after a dozen or so times, it disappeared again. Damn it, you have some perseverance. Xiaohua was a bit anxious. If he had the ability, he would have definitely grabbed the humans or demon spirits outside the restriction and told them the story of confidence. Fortunately, a few days later there was another roar, and this time it lasted for a long time. The movement was also bigger. Looks like I found a helper. Xiaohua happily lay inside the restriction, waiting for the human or demon race outside to break in. After a while, Xiaohua's eyes swiveled around again and he mused, damn it, this Xiao's wretched appearance is truly somewhat shameful. Although I don't know how the night spirit world's demon spirits can see other people's appearance, this Xiao's original appearance is quite inappropriate. I might as well use another appearance first. Although Xiaohua's Fa Li has not recovered, the transformation technique of Qingqiu Mountain is also wonderful. Xiaohua did not need to use too many methods to turn into Zhang Xiaohua with a small nose and small eyes. Of course, this rustic Zhang Xiaohua appearance is now slowly growing flesh and blood. Unfortunately, Xiaohua still thought too much, but in the time it takes to eat a meal, the roar disappeared again. Xiaohua almost jumped out of the crack in the stone. This feeling of giving hope and then extinguishing it really made him feel very disappointed. That's not right. Xiaohua suddenly thought of something and secretly cursed. This seal was set up by a cultivator who has surpassed the 9th level of elemental energy. In other words, this seal is comparable to a great saint from the 10,000 demon realm. This kind of seal breaking doesn't seem like a great saint from the demon realm. It's not even a sun realm expert. How could they break the seal? At the crucial moment, no one can be relied on, not to mention these night spirit world's demon spirits. Even this Xiao's doppelganger is not enough. I still have to rely on myself. At this time he was clear about his situation, and Xiaohua no longer looked around, retracted his divine sense, and began to use the techniques that could be used to speed up the recovery of his body, wanting to recover as soon as possible. Chapter 48-47. However, contrary to Xiaohua's expectations, the body repair that he thought was not difficult was now extremely difficult to do. His flesh and blood were like tender shoots growing slowly and slowly, far from the refreshing feeling he had in the 10,000 demon realm. How is this possible? Xiaohua was a little surprised, and hurriedly urged his divine sense to explore the nearby world's origin qi. That's not right. This restriction doesn't seem to be blocking world's origin qi, and the world's origin qi within the restriction is also extremely abundant. However, the world's origin qi did not rush into Xiaohua's body like before to repair his body. Strange. Could it be that my injuries are too serious? Or my body is too strange, and this simple cultivation method can't repair it? Xiaohua thought while releasing his divine sense to carefully explore. After observing for a few days, Xiaohua finally had some understanding, and an indescribable feeling emerged from the bottom of his heart, either proud or regretful. I understand. I am originally a demigod, and my primordial spirit is entrusted to the world's origin qi. After my body was destroyed, the world's origin qi is far from enough to repair it. From my divine sense, it seems that the world's origin qi is repairing, but in fact, it is the world's origin qi that is repairing. In other words, my current body is similar to Panga's axe. In this unknown world, whether it is divine sense or the naked eye, it looks like a complete body, but in fact, it is just an outline. In the upper realm, only lines can be seen, and it is not a real body. It is also because the world's origin qi is repairing the body that it is so slow. Knowing the reason for the slow repair of his body, Xiaohua was not in a hurry, and slowly urged his cultivation method to repair it. After more than 100 days, Xiaohua's body could be considered to have been repaired successfully. This barely naturally meant that he could move, and he could barely use some small skills. As for the great sage of the human race, there was still a long way to go. At this time, Xiaohua wanted to continue repairing his body, but a strange situation appeared. This was because when his physical body reached a certain level, his meridians, blood vessels, bones, and other parts of his body began to show other abnormalities. It was as if a seed had sprouted there. His physical body was no longer strengthened, and these parts began to grow rapidly. However, there were many places that required heaven and earth yuan qi. These places were growing at an extremely fast rate, but it was impossible to see any embryonic form in a short period of time. Sensing this abnormality, Xiaohua's heart calmed down again. It seemed like his avatars hadn't been left behind in the void, but had been annihilated by the impact of the laws of the realm. These places must be where his avatars had been annihilated, and now they were reborn in this unknown realm. But that's not right either. Xiaohua still had some doubts. For example, the Thunderclap Immortal was comprehending the boundary laws in his lower dantian. Was he still in his lower dantian? For example, Reverend Yun's dragon body was formed from the dragon cleansing liquid in the dragon realm. If he formed another dragon body in the nameless realm now, wouldn't it be incomparable to his previous dragon body? For example, Demon Sovereign Sure was a demon spirit with a demon body. How could he condense a demon body in this nameless world? Could it be that it's not just my physical body that has been constructed by the laws of heaven and earth, but the bodies of my other avatars also need to be constructed by the laws of heaven and earth? If that's the case, they've all become bodies of the laws of heaven and earth. Can they still be considered my clones? Although there were many questions in his mind that he couldn't get the answers he wanted, as long as all his avatars were still here, Xiaohua was satisfied. He pulled his avatars out from the crack, somersaulted and landed on a rock he had chosen earlier. After that, he gave the darkness around him a quick glance, then walked towards a spot in the distance. During the past 100 days, the demon spirits had come a few more times. Needless to say, all of them came back empty-handed. In recent days they had stopped coming. It looked like even the demon spirits in the night spirit realm would lose their confidence. Actually, Xiaohua had already swept through this restriction many times before this, and he'd already understood that this restriction was actually incomplete. Moreover, it was filled with an indescribable might, and it was precisely this might that caused Xiaohua to be unable to determine exactly what sort of formation this restriction was. Because there was a flaw, and Xiaohua was still inside the formation, although Xiaohua hadn't recovered his divine ability yet, as a Dao League's formation master, Xiaohua could still easily break the formation. After walking a distance without much effort, Xiaohua reached a spot in the restrictive formation. Xiaohua stretched out his hand and grabbed at the darkness. Then, he saw that the black shadow had traces of distortion under the huge force. When Xiaohua reached out again, boom! The space around him began to collapse. Following the collapse, swish! A glaring ray of sunlight shone down, shining on Xiaohua's naked, scarred body. Xiaohua calculated for a long time, but he really didn't expect that in this unknown realm, he would see sunlight the moment he appeared. Moreover, the sunlight was very glaring. This was obviously not the night spirit realm. Since it wasn't the night spirit realm, then what realm could it be? He couldn't help but be surprised, and his eyes naturally closed. Unfortunately, before Xiaohua could use his divine sense to look around, a very rough voice came from afar. "Hey you! You actually dared to touch my banner, quickly return it." Banner? Xiaohua didn't have time to think about how he could understand the voice in the distance. He was only stunned for a moment, then he hurriedly released his divine sense. What made Xiaohua even more embarrassed was that before he could see what the banner looked like, he immediately sensed the naked body around him. Without thinking too much, he used the banner in his hand to cover his vital parts. At this moment, Xiaohua was incomparably glad. Long before he broke the restrictive formation, he changed his appearance to Zhang Xiaohua. Otherwise, wouldn't his face as a great sage of the human race be completely shattered? Before Xiaohua realized that Zhang Xiaohua was actually his original appearance, he heard swish, swish, swish. Several sounds broke through the air. In his divine sense, he actually saw 4 human cultivators surrounding him, and there was even a woman among them. At the same time, 3 strands of divine perception cautiously scanned Xiaohua's surroundings for a moment, and then that voice cried out once more. "Fellow, this place was discovered by my martial nephew earlier. We've already been here breaking through the formation for many days. Quickly return that banner to me and I'll spare your life. Otherwise." Not waiting for that man to finish speaking, Xiaohua very shyly replied, "Fellow Taoist, this humble Taoist is actually very willing to return this banner to fellow Taoist right now, but the question is, does this female fellow Taoist agree or not?" As Xiaohua spoke, he closed his eyes and faced the female cultivator who deliberately landed in front of him. Bah! The unknown female cultivator spat and reminded him, "Senior Martial Brother Hong, it's better to be careful. I heard Junior Apprentice Brother Lu say that he tried to break the formation a few times but failed. This formation is obviously no small matter. But look, this cultivator who doesn't seem to have much cultivation base actually used a banner to break a part of the formation. I'm afraid his strength is even higher than ours." At this point, the female cultivator couldn't help but change the topic and asked, "Junior Martial Brother Lu, do you have extra clothes? I see that his figure is similar to yours." "What bullshit strength?" Another voice sounded again. This voice was a bit thin. "If he had strength, wouldn't he transform into a crude set of clothes? That wouldn't consume much magic power." "Hee, that's true." A rough voice sounded. At the same time, Xiaohua also had the same thought in his heart. "Hee, that's true." Xiaohua previously only thought about transforming his appearance and didn't care about his physical body. Previously, when he just came out of the formation and faced the sunlight, he very naturally used the banner to cover his vital parts. He also didn't think that he would use magic power to transform. Now that he transformed again, he felt that it was a bit too obvious. Since he could transform, why didn't he transform earlier? If he transformed again now, wouldn't that be taking liberties with the female cultivator? What was special was that Xiaohua had already distinguished that the language these cultivators spoke was similar to Xiaoyu continent. Xiaohua also had the mood to mix with these low-level cultivators. "Senior Martial Brothers, don't be careless." Finally, a slightly refined voice sounded. My disciple Yi Qing happened to pass by the vicinity before the new year and suddenly heard a strange sound. He thought that some strange treasure was born. He hurriedly rushed over to investigate. But at that time light and shadow were unceasing, and a kind of vast and enormous force that he couldn't fundamentally describe flooded the area. He couldn't even approach within 100 miles. After waiting for more than 100 days, that vast power of heaven and earth slowly dissipated again. And at this time, he discovered that the nearby mountain peaks and forests were all destroyed. It looked like a powerful magical treasure had come into being, destroying everything. However, just like what Junior Marshall Brother said before, he didn't find anything special. He only saw in this hidden place this unbreakable formation. As he spoke, the voice paused as if he was pointing at something in the distance and explained, "Senior Apprentice Brothers, you all saw it when you came here. All the traces of destruction show that if a magic treasure was born, it could only land in this formation. Therefore, when my disciple failed to break the formation, he returned to the mountain and secretly told Junior Marshall Brother." "Junior Marshall Brother Qingyu, didn't you just say all this?" that rough voice asked curiously. "Saying it again, are you afraid that Senior Marshall Brothers will forget?" The Junior Marshall Brother named Lu Qingyu smiled bitterly and said, "Senior Marshall Brother Hong, Junior Marshall Brother's meaning is, what if it wasn't a magic treasure that was born, but a person?" "A person? How could a person be born?" Senior Marshall Brother Hong scratched his head, very puzzled. However, after a short moment he seemed to have thought of something. He looked in astonishment at Xiao Hua, who had already slowly narrowed his eyes to look at him, and even looked past him to look at the surroundings. He couldn't help but cry out, "Junior Brother Qingyu, are you talking about this person?" Chapter 48. The female cultivator was also silent at this time. She looked at Xiao Hua up and down very quickly and said, "Junior Brother Lu is right. This cultivator doesn't seem to have any cultivation base, but his body has scars and his muscles are strong. He's much stronger than ordinary cultivators. He actually broke the formation that you couldn't break." "No, I don't believe it." Another cultivator still shook his head. "How could a powerful cultivator come to this remote place?" Lu Qingyu seemed to be somewhat disappointed and said in a low voice, "Senior Brother Zhang, if there isn't a powerful cultivator who laid this formation, I say, everyone, can you give me some clothes to wear?" Xiao Hua didn't know whether to laugh or cry after listening for a moment. His eyes had already adapted to the sunlight. He looked up at Lu Qingyu and asked, "The weather is very cold. You have the nerve to criticize me and let me stand in the cold wind like this?" Lu Qingyu was a tall and thin cultivator. He wore clothes similar to Confucian cultivators and looked very gentle. Sorry. Although he didn't know Xiao Hua's origin, Lu Qingyu still showed a smile on his face. As he spoke, he used his right hand to brush a ring on his left thumb and took out some clothes. He shook his hand and was about to throw them over. However, the moment the clothes left his hand, Lu Qingyu hesitated. However, he only hesitated for a moment. Lu Qingyu didn't pour magic power into the clothes and easily threw them into Xiao Hua's hands. Oh! Xiao Hua took the clothes and suddenly felt good about Lu Qingyu. Although he didn't mind Lu Qingyu's probing, this trust made him very happy. Just as Xiao Hua shook the clothes and was about to put them on, Senior Brother Zhang said in a low voice, "Fellow Taoist, you just said that you would return the banner to us after getting the clothes." "Did I say that?" Xiao Hua tilted his head and asked with a smile. "Why didn't you say that?" Senior Brother Hong shouted, "You just said that you would give it to us, but you were afraid that junior sister you wouldn't agree." "Yes, this junior sister you. Would she agree?" Xiao Hua asked again. "How could junior sister you not agree?" Senior Brother Hong didn't understand the meaning behind Xiao Hua's words at all, and said anxiously, "Don't you think so, Yue Hua?" The junior martial sister named Yu Hua rolled her eyes at Senior Martial Brother Hong, then turned around and said, "Fellow Taoist, put on your clothes first." "Don't." Senior Brother Hong panicked. He clearly promised that as long as you agreed, he would give the banner to us. Seeing that Yu Hua had turned around, Xiao Hua shook his robe and casually put it on. Lu Qingyu's figure looked somewhat similar to Xiao Hua's, but in fact he was a bit shorter. The clothes were quite awkward on Xiao Hua's body. Fortunately, Xiao Hua could already use the transformation technique at this time, and his figure became slightly shorter so he could wear it. After putting on his clothes, Xiao Hua squinted his eyes and looked around. At this moment, Xiao Hua only had one feeling: small. The world was small, the mountain was small, the forest was small, even the 4 cultivators in front of him were pitifully small. Alas, the demon spirits in the 10,000 demon realm are easily hundreds of feet. This Xiaohua also had a golden body of thousands of feet in the 10,000 demon realm, but here it's only about 10 feet. No wonder everything is not pleasing to the eye. Xiaohua sighed slightly, retracted his gaze and fell on Yuhua in front of him. It was not that he was frivolous because in front of him, there was only Yuhua's back. Senior Marshal Brother Hong and Lu Qingyu were on his left and right, and that Senior Marshal Brother Zhang was behind him, standing above the restriction. Yuhua's back looked a bit graceful, and she was wearing a kind of beautiful clothes, which was somewhat different from the female cultivators in the Xiaoyu continent. Her black hair was casually tied into a heart shape, and it was pinned behind her head with a hair bun, covering her snow-white neck. "Fellow Taoist, are you dressed?" Yuhua asked softly. "I'm already dressed, you can turn around," Xiaohua replied with a smile. Yuhua turned around. Bai Jing's simple and elegant appearance did not disappoint Xiaohua, and when Yuhua saw Xiaohua's gaze, her face inexplicably blushed, and her gaze flickered as she looked away, which made Xiaohua's heart skip a beat. He instantly understood that he had cultivated the secret technique of Qingqiu sect. His appearance might not have changed, but his temperament had long changed. The temptation of this big change was so great that even Fairy Xingyu said it was powerful, let alone this middle-stage gold-core female cultivator in front of him. Before, when he didn't open his eyes, Yuhua didn't feel anything special, but now, under his bright eyes, Yuhua didn't dare to look at him. Thinking of this, Xiaohua hurriedly turned around, looked at Senior Marshal Brother Hong and said, "Fellow Taoist Hong, right?" Senior Marshal Brother Hong was a man like a black tower. His body was thick and it matched his voice very well. At this time, when he heard Xiaohua's words, he couldn't help but feel close to him, and he hurriedly replied, "Yes, I'm Hong Feng." Xiaohua waved the banner in his hand and said with a smile, "You want this banner?" "Yes." Hong Feng replied without hesitation. "Junior Marshal Brother Lu hasn't been able to break this formation for many days. It must be an extremely powerful formation. Our Chanhe sect needs this kind of formation to protect our sect." Senior Marshal Brother Hong. Lu Qingyu heard Hong Feng's honest answer, and he didn't even have the slightest intention of keeping it a secret, and he couldn't help but feel anxious. Xiaohua also didn't deliberately activate his divine ability, so Hong Feng suddenly realized and hurriedly looked at Lu Qingyu. "Oh, what's wrong? There are some things that shouldn't be said, so don't say it." Senior Marshal Brother Zhang's voice sounded from behind. "Eh." Hong Feng agreed, but he looked at Xiaohua thoughtlessly and said, "Can you give this flag to us?" Xiaohua looked at this man with a smile. He had a kind of expectation in his heart. He really wanted to know if this world was the Tao Celestial Realm, if it was the Failure Immortal Alliance, and then ask about the location of the Million Ming Mountains. However, he suddenly turned around and looked at Senior Marshal Brother Zhang, who was in mid-air. Senior Marshal Brother Zhang was a short and thin old man. His eyes shone brightly and he was obviously a shrewd person. However, when Xiaohua spoke, Senior Marshal Brother Zhang lost his usual shrewdness. Xiaohua asked, "What is fellow Taoist Zhang's name?" "I am Zhang Ji, a disciple of Chanhe sect's Yulan Hall." Zhang Ji was even more serious than Hong Feng, and he answered every question. Behind Xiaohua, Yuehua and beside him, Lu Qingyu were shocked. They looked at each other and couldn't help but take a few steps back. "Don't be afraid, don't be afraid." Xiaohua turned his head slightly and looked at Yuehua with a smile. "I'm just casually asking, I don't mean any harm." Yuehua couldn't help but close her eyes. Xiaohua's smile was so charming that she couldn't help but want to speak. However, Xiaohua didn't ask Yuehua but asked Zhang Ji, "Zhang Ji, let me ask you, do you know the Failure Immortal Alliance?" "Failure Immortal Alliance?" Zhang Ji was stunned and shook his head like a rattled drum. I don't know." "Yes." Xiaohua's heart turned cold and he hurriedly asked, "Then, is this the Tao Heaven Realm?" "Tao Heaven Realm? What is that place?" Zhang Ji didn't understand and asked curiously. Xiaohua rolled his eyes and immediately understood. Zhang Ji was only a golden core cultivator, how could he know the information about the realm? Thus he smiled and said, "Then, this place, oh, this continent, what is its name?" "Oh, so that's what you are asking." Zhang Ji suddenly understood and said with a smile, "This place is naturally the Yilan continent. Don't tell me you don't know?" Hearing this, Lu Qingyu's face changed dramatically. He seemed to have thought of something. He raised his hand and his finger touched the ring on his finger. His teeth were also biting his lips as if he was extremely vigilant. Xiaohua's heart instantly fell into an ice cellar. He had already realized the seriousness of the matter. If this Yilan continent wasn't the other side of the Dawn Rain continent, and it wasn't the Dao Heaven realm, then he would have to find the space passage to the Dawn Rain continent again. And with his current situation, how could he have enough time? Xiaohua thought for a moment and asked again, do you know why this place is called the Yilan continent? The shape of the continent is like a qilin, but it's also different from a qilin, so it's called the Yilan continent. Zhang Ji answered without hesitation. Do you know the Dawn Rain continent? Xiaohua probed. Sure enough, Zhang Ji still shook his head. What about Million Meng Mountains? Xiaohua didn't dare to ask this last question. I don't know. Zhang Ji shook his head, extinguishing Xiaohua's last hope. Damn it. Xiaohua couldn't help but curse. That. At this moment, Yuehua behind Xiaohua seemed to feel the disappointment in his heart and hurriedly said, I know. In the distant southeast there seems to be a place called Wuming Mountain Range. What did you say? Yuehua's words were like the sound of nature. When Xiaohua heard it, he immediately turned around with a face full of ecstasy. I read from the sect's records that in the southeast direction of the Yilan continent, there's an extremely dangerous place called Wuming Mountain Range. Yuehua answered carefully, but I don't know if it's the same as Million Meng Mountains. Both sides have the word Meng. Ah. Xiaohua laughed loudly, his body somersaulted a few times in the air before he landed and asked, then do you know what's on the other side of Wuming Mountain Range? Seeing Xiaohua so excited, Yuehua was so excited that her nose turned red. However, she still shook her head honestly and said, I don't know what's on the other side of Wuming Mountain Range, there's no record of it in the sect's records. If you want to know, you might have to go to the Fallen Immortal sect and ask. Fallen Immortal sect? Xiaohua smiled. He really wanted to ask, but he swallowed the words back down. His strength hadn't recovered yet, how could he ask? Asking too much now would only make him look timid. Thank you, Fairy Yu, I'll give this banner to you. Xiaohua smiled and raised his hand to give the banner to her. Yuehua's face turned even redder. She took the banner, bowed and said, Thank you, fellow cultivator. Chapter 48-49. Haha, fellow Taoist is really straightforward, I like it very much. Seeing Xiaohua give the banner to Yuehua without saying a word, Hongfeng laughed and cupped his hands. I haven't asked for fellow Taoist's name yet. Hehe, I'm Zhang Xiaohua. Xiaohua smiled and cupped his hands in return. At this time he simply didn't call himself old man and didn't reveal his real name. So it's fellow Taoist Zhang, I'm sorry for not recognizing you. Lu Qingyu also smiled and cupped his hands asking, May I know where fellow Taoist Zhang is from? Hehe, naturally from where I came from? Xiaohua didn't say it directly and covered it up. Master. Before Zhang Ji could greet him, a tall and handsome Foundation establishment cultivator in the distance rushed over on a flying sword and shouted loudly, How's the situation? Did the array? Before the cultivator finished speaking, he had already noticed Xiaohua, who was still surrounded by Zhang Ji and the others. He immediately shut up and was about to turn around and escape. Just as his figure paused, he saw the banner in Yuehua's hand and the clothes on Xiaohua's body. He seemed to understand something. Although he slowed down his flying speed, he still flew over steadily. Lu Qingyu saw the cultivator coming over and a smile appeared in his eyes. He said to Xiaohua, This is the inferior disciple I just mentioned, Nua Yeqing. Then he shouted to Nua Yeqing, Yeqing, quickly come over and greet Senior Zhang. Yes, master. Nua Yeqing hurriedly landed and respectfully saluted Xiaohua. Hehe, get up. Xiaohua raised his hand and motioned for Nua Yeqing to get up. However, he looked at Nua Yeqing's appearance and was somewhat puzzled. Because when Nua Yeqing just appeared, he felt a slightly familiar aura on Nua Yeqing's body. As for what kind of aura it was, Xiaohua himself didn't know. But looking at Nua Yeqing's appearance, it was completely unfamiliar. He had never seen it before. After Nua Yeqing saluted, she curiously looked at Xiaohua and hurriedly walked to Lu Qingyu's side, whispering, Master, it seems that you've succeeded. Could it be that Senior Zhang helped you? What are you doing here? Lu Qingyu said with a frown. Our Yulan Hall has been busy these past few days. Your master and your martial uncles came out, and were afraid that the hall master would be looking for you, so we specially left you in the hall. Hehe, the palace master was having a headache, so he dismissed the disciples early in the afternoon. Seeing that the palace master was fine, I slipped out. Nua Yeqing blinked her eyes. Seeing that Lu Qingyu didn't talk about the sex affairs behind Xiaohua's back, she was rather puzzled. Just as Nua Yeqing finished speaking, Zhang Ji became anxious and urged, Junior brother Lu, let's do it quickly. The hall master had a headache before noon and would flip out at night. It's our turn to have a headache. Let's hurry back. All right. Lu Qingyu nodded slightly at Xiaohua. His figure flew to the top of the restriction formation, and pointed at a place with his finger. Previously I attacked here but it didn't have any effect. Now that fellow Zhang has broken a corner of the formation, the other places should be easy to deal with. Let's start from the collapsed corner. Following Lu Qingyu's instructions, Hong Feng, Zhang Ji and Nuo Yeqing all flew over. Yuehua was not in a hurry. Instead, she flew to Xiaohua, lowered her head and said, "Fellow Zhang, if we can't break the restriction formation, please help us again. This formation is very important to us." I know you can go." Xiaohua smiled slightly and didn't say much. However, just these few words made Yuehua, a Jindan stage cultivator, unable to help but feel her heart jump. Not to mention Yuehua and the other Jindan stage cultivators working together to break the formation. Xiaohua walked a few laps on the left side and released his divine sense to look at the desolate scenery around him. After thinking for a moment, he slowly walked back to the mountain peak. The celestial Dao world was a strange place for Xiaohua. Although he was somewhat sure that this celestial Dao world was the other side of the Dawn Rain continent, he couldn't be sure after all. He still had to rely on these so-called disciples of the Chan he sect in front of him. Xiaohua returned to his original place. Nearly an hour had passed. Whether it was Zhang Ji, Lu Qingyu or even Hong Feng who had the best cultivation, their foreheads were all sweating. However, when they looked at the formation that they worked together to attack, except for the flaw that Xiaohua revealed when he took away a banner, there were no other abnormalities. Looking at the people breaking the formation, Xiaohua's heart was a little complicated. Because at this time, although he didn't use any magic, he could clearly see everyone's cultivation. It was as if everyone's cultivation was revealed in front of him without any cover. Then Xiaohua looked at the mountain peak, the trees and even looked up at the sky and looked down at the earth. At this time in his eyes the whole world was completely different from before. Previously he saw the mountain as a mountain and the water as water. Now the mountain wasn't a mountain and the water wasn't water. It was as if everything in his eyes was a kind of outline or the existence of laws. As for Xiaohua himself, although he was different from all of this, Xiaohua believed that as long as he was willing, he could perfectly integrate with all of this, possess all of this and control all of this. Haha, perhaps this is a sign that my primordial spirit entrusting technique has reached a higher level. Xiaohua understood and couldn't help but be secretly happy. I have entrusted my primordial spirit to the law of the realm, and I have become the law of the realm. Everything in this realm is under this law, so I can naturally control all of this. This realm seems to have been mentioned in Xin Hong's discussion in the Star Moon Palace. It should be the magic of a demigod or nihility god. Xiaohua thought as he walked closer. His eyes fell on the magic array in the distance. At this time, the magic array in Xiaohua's eyes was no longer the same as before. However, he still couldn't see any clues at a glance. This was enough to show how powerful this magic array was. At this time, Nuo Yeqing and Yu Hua were already resting on a rock nearby. Their eyes were filled with helplessness, but more than that, there was a kind of ecstasy. The more solid the magic array was, the more powerful it was. Moreover, Yu Hua had an inexplicable belief in Xiaohua. Zhang Ji and the others might not be able to break the magic array, but wasn't there still Xiaohua? Seeing that Xiaohua was walking back, Yu Hua gave Nuo Yeqing a slight look. Nuo Yeqing shrugged her shoulders and hurriedly jumped down from the rock. She didn't use the flying technique and flew in front of Xiaohua. She said respectfully, "Junior greets Senior Zhang." Xiaohua had an inexplicable good impression of Nuo Yeqing. He said with a smile, "One who is unaccountably solicitous is hiding evil intentions. Senior is wise and farsighted. You can see this junior's thoughts at a glance." Nuo Yeqing said with a smile, "However, this junior is happy to steal something for the sect." Suddenly Xiaohua seemed to wake up. Why did he have a familiar feeling with Nuo Yeqing? Nuo Yeqing's shy face and cheap expression, wasn't it somewhat similar to Xiang Zhili's? And Hong Feng's simple and honest appearance, wasn't it somewhat similar to Xiang Yang's? A kind of longing and nostalgia for a long time couldn't help but surge in Xiaohua's heart. "It seems that you want me to help you break the magic array?" Xiaohua asked kindly. Of course. Nuo Yeqing nodded her head like a chicken pecking rice. "If Senior can help, that would be the best. This junior will be very grateful." "Well said." Xiaohua pinched his chin and asked, "If I can break the magic array, what benefits will I get?" "The benefits are great," Nuo Yeqing said casually, "good wine and good meat." As long as Senior likes it, this Junior will give it to you. Seeing that Nuo Yeching's character was really similar to Xiang Zhili's, Xiaohua couldn't help but laugh. He looked at Nuo Yeching and said, "Fairy Yu, show me the banner." Seeing Nuo Yeching being so impudent, Nuo Yeching's heart was sweating. It was just as Lu Qingyu said. She couldn't see through this unprepossessing cultivator in front of her at all. Maybe he really was a senior expert. Ordinary people would be too late to be respectful to him, so how could he joke around? However, Xiaohua didn't put on any airs. He seemed to like joking with Nuo Yeching, so Nuo Yeching's heart was relieved. When she heard Xiaohua looking at her, Nuo Yeching didn't dare to be negligent. She hurriedly responded and took out the banner from an emerald green jade bracelet on her wrist. She respectfully handed it over. Xiaohua just casually pulled out the banner and didn't take it seriously. Now that he looked at it carefully, he couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. This banner was only a few feet in size. There was a star engraved on it. This star was surrounded by a smoke-like halo, which covered most of the banner. The rest of the flag was blank until the edge of the flag was covered in star patterns. At this time the banner was already damaged. There were traces of lightning strikes on the edges. Most of the star patterns were destroyed by the so-called lightning strikes. The star halos in the center of the banner also had dozens of lightning-like cracks, as if they were pierced by sharp swords. However, where Xiaohua's eyes fell, the fluttering banner flickered slightly, as if there was a three-legged golden crow spirit beast floating up. It was very strange. "Fairy Yu," Xiaohua's eyes showed a strange color. He handed the banner to Nuo Yeching and said, "Use your magic power to see." Nuo Yeching already had a lot of trust in Xiaohua. After receiving the banner, she used her magic power. As her magic power passed, the banner emitted a faint brilliance. A three-legged golden crow appeared from the star on the banner. Not only did it block the star and star patterns, but the banner itself was also covered. However, just as the three-legged golden crow appeared, the brilliance immediately converged, revealing the broken star halos. Obviously, it was because Nuo Yeching didn't have enough magic power. "This is the banner of the capital star formation," Xiaohua asserted without hesitation. He raised his eyes and carefully looked at the surrounding mountains. Sure enough, under the mess, Xiaohua found some traces of lightning tribulation. Chapter 4850. I understand now. Xiaohua thought to himself. There must be a cultivator who is undergoing the lightning tribulation here. The Du Tian star array was used by that cultivator to resist the lightning tribulation. However, because I broke into the heavenly tribulation and destroyed everything, the capital sky star array was revealed. Oh, or perhaps it was because I crashed into the capital star formation that the formation was revealed, allowing Nuo Yeching to discover it. Xiaohua looked at Yu Hua and Nuo Yeching, who were looking at him expectantly, and said with a smile, "Ask them to stop. This is the Du Tian star array. With their current cultivation, I'm afraid they can't break it." Du Tian star array? Nuo Yeching was stunned. She obviously didn't know the name of this array. Yu Hua was also stunned. After a while, her eyes widened and she exclaimed, "Senior, are you talking about the demon-vanquishing star array? That's the fallen immortal sect's sect-protecting array." Xiaohua shrugged and said with a smile, "I don't know about this. I know that this is the Du Tian star array and there are traces of the lightning tribulation on the flag. Maybe a cultivator used this array to set up the lightning tribulation." Before Xiaohua could finish, Yu Hua couldn't help but exclaim. She covered her mouth with her hand and said, I know." Nuo Yeching was still puzzled and asked hurriedly, "What does Martial Uncle Yu know?" Yu Hua didn't answer Nuo Yeching. Instead, she hurriedly shouted at Lu Qingyu and the others, "Junior brother Lu, hurry up and stop." "What's wrong?" Lu Qingyu and the others were already dispirited and were about to find an excuse to stop. When they heard Yu Hua's shout, they immediately flew to her side and asked hurriedly. Yu Hua was excited and exclaimed, "This is the fallen immortal sect's spiritual master Huang Qiong's lightning tribulation." Before Yu Hua could finish, Zhang Ji exclaimed, "How is that possible? Why would spiritual master Huang Qiong be here?" Xiaohua smiled and said, "There's nothing impossible. This place is vast and sparsely populated. Moreover, the heaven and earth essence qi is abundant. It's a good place for lightning tribulation." Heaven and earth essence qi? Nuo Yeching looked at Xiaohua strangely and asked, "Senior Zhang, isn't it the world's spiritual qi?" It's the same, it's the same." Xiaohua says with a smile, "We call the spiritual qi of heaven and earth origin qi. They're all the same." Unfortunately, Xiaohua didn't notice the strange look in Nua Yeqing's eyes. Instead, he was looking thoughtfully at the mountain range. Yuehua seemed to have noticed Xiaohua's gaze as well. She hurriedly said to Lu Qingyu, "I believe junior brother Lu also knows about the fallen immortal sect's spiritual master Huang Qiong's tribulation, right?" Lu Qingyu nodded. "Of course. Everyone in the Fengyan kingdom knows about this. Damn it." Hong Feng, who was next to him, was even more excited. He shouted, "I was just a chi refinement kid back then, but I also had a very deep impression of this famous tribulation-passing cultivator from the fallen immortal sect. Back then, it was said that he was one of the Mahayana cultivators most likely to transcend the tribulation in our Fengyan kingdom. No, he is the Mahayana cultivator with the highest chance of transcending the tribulation, not just one of them." Zhang Ji seemed to have heard about spiritual master Huang Qiong as well. He said, "My master even used spiritual master Huang Qiong's story to lecture me. It's a pity that spiritual master Huang Qiong didn't ask the fallen immortal sect's elders to protect him when he transcended the tribulation. In the end, he disappeared without a trace. No one knows if he succeeded or not." Yuehua looked at Xiaohua and then at the formation in the distance. She said softly, "Actually, as far as I know, there's another saying in the fallen immortal sect." Lu Qingyu saw that Yuehua was in a difficult position and didn't dare to continue. He continued, "Junior sister Yuehua is right. There's another saying that spiritual master Huang Qiong failed the tribulation and didn't even enter the tribulation passing stage. This is because after spiritual master Huang Qiong, no other Mahayana cultivator has successfully transcended the tribulation." Xiaohua, who was standing at the side, suddenly turned around and asked, "Why no other Mahayana cultivator has successfully transcended the tribulation? Is it because they weren't prepared enough?" "No." Lu Qingyu explained bitterly, "It's because after spiritual master Huang Qiong transcended the tribulation, the heaven and earth spirit chi suddenly changed." "What? The heaven and earth spirit chi changed?" Although Xiaohua's words were filled with shock and joy, Lu Qingyu and the others were confused. "Yes, Senior Zhang." Yuehua continued, "The Chanhe sect is a small sect. In the past 50,000 years, no disciple has been able to cultivate to the Mahayana realm. Therefore, no disciple has been able to transcend the tribulation. However, according to the news from the other sects in the Fengyan kingdom, after spiritual master Huang Qiong's lightning tribulation, every Mahayana cultivator would be struck by a crimson lightning that had never been seen in the lightning tribulation before. According to the seniors of the other sects, the crimson lightning is the holy lightning tribulation. It's a lightning tribulation that's formed to break free from the body of a demon beast. The holy lightning tribulation specifically targets the body of a demon beast. It's not something a human body can withstand. Therefore, no Mahayana cultivator has been able to transcend the holy lightning tribulation and become a tribulation passing stage cultivator." Hearing this, Xiaohua was certain that the so-called Yilan continent must be the other side of the Dawn Rain continent, which was the continent where the Defeat You Immortal Alliance was located. Then it's been a few hundred years since spiritual master Huang Qiong transcended the tribulation? Xiaohua thought for a moment and asked again. This Yuehua hesitated as if she was recalling. After a moment she replied, "It seems to be 600 years ago." When she said 600 years, Yuehua's face suddenly turned red. It seemed that Xiaohua's question had revealed her age. More than 600 years ah. Xiaohua didn't notice Yuehua's abnormality. Instead, he frowned and calculated in his heart, "I stayed in the Dawn Rain continent for less than 100 years. After arriving at the three continents, I first went into seclusion in the West Sea for more than 100 years. Then, I went to the Heaven Prison for more than 200 years. After that, I seem to have spent another few decades in the Star Moon Palace. After that, I went to the 10,000 Demon Realm and spent another 20 years. That's about 600 years. The time of the Heaven and Earth Spirit Chi's mutation is exactly the same as the Dawn Rain continent. Alas, if I could be born 1,000 years earlier, I might be able to cultivate to the spirit severing stage. Now it's difficult again." When Xiaohua was thinking, Hong Feng suddenly sighed. Xiaohua had a plan in his heart and was in a good mood. He looked at Hong Feng and said with a smile, "Fellow Taoist, Hong's nature is simple and honest. It's a good material for cultivation. Although your cultivation is shallow now, as long as you cultivate diligently, you can reach the spirit-severing stage. It's even possible for you to step into the void refinement or body integration stage." "Senior Zhang, there's something you don't know." Hearing Yuehua call Xiaohua Senior Zhang, Hong Feng didn't dare to neglect and said with a wry smile, If it was before the spiritual chi of heaven and earth changed, I would have such confidence. But now that the world has changed, even condensing a nascent soul requires a thunder tribulation. Which human cultivator dares to say that he can definitely pass this abnormal thunder tribulation? Ah, is that so? Xiao Hua was surprised and asked curiously, could it be that there is a thunder tribulation after the gold core stage? It's more than just a thunder tribulation. Although this thunder tribulation is not a holy thunder tribulation, it is still a demonic beast thunder tribulation. Even if we are a body cultivator, it is impossible for us to pass this kind of thunder tribulation. Lu Qingyu complained. Xiao Hua touched his nose and said with a wry smile, this is troublesome. Needless to say, the Dawn Rain continent was also like this. Xiao Hua originally wanted to place Li Xiang, Xiong Yi and the others in Dawn Rain continent, but since the spiritual energy of heaven and earth mutated and gave birth to such a strange lightning tribulation, Li Xiang, Xiong Yi and the others, how could they smoothly cultivate into the spirit-severing stage? The two of them. And even the disciples of the soaring Dragon Mountain range of the Fortune Gate were not bad, but they were not heaven-defying. The disciples of the Dao Gate of the Yilin continent were unable to pass the nascent soul tribulation. If they couldn't pass the thunder tribulation, they would definitely not be able to pass it. Hearing that the topic had gone too far, Yu Hua, whose face was still red, hurriedly raised her voice and said, Junior Brother Lu, Senior Zhang just said that this is the flag of the demon subduing star formation. If I'm not wrong, the Royal Dome spiritual master's remains should be inside the formation. See. Lu Qingyu sucked in a breath of cold air and a trace of panic appeared in his eyes. He looked at Zhang Ji, who was also at a loss. On the other hand, Hong Feng was ecstatic and shouted, that's great, that's great. Regardless of whether the Royal Dome spiritual master died or went missing, the things he left behind must be incomparably precious. If we bring it back to the sect, it will definitely bring benefits to the sect. Not to mention the Royal Dome spiritual master's remains, even if we bring the flag of the demon subduing star formation back to the sect, we will be able to. Hong Feng looked at Zhang Ji with a puzzled expression and asked, Junior Brother Zhang Yu, why are you looking at me? Senior Brother Hong. Zhang Ji smiled bitterly and said, since we know that this is the place where the Royal Dome spiritual master underwent his thunder tribulation, we can't casually touch a single strand of grass here. In the past, the fallen immortal sect paid a huge price to find the whereabouts of the Royal Dome spiritual master. Not only did they want to confirm whether the Royal Dome spiritual master underwent his thunder tribulation, but more importantly, the demon subduing star formation and the things that the Royal Dome spiritual master left behind. Tell me, if we break the demon vanquishing star formation and take the things inside, the fallen immortal sect will definitely wipe us out from the Fengyan kingdom. Hee, that's true. Hong Feng laughed and touched his head. He asked, what about now? It's very simple. Lu Qingyu shrugged and replied, we will rush back to the sect now and ask the sect leader to make a decision. If nothing goes wrong, the sect leader will send a disciple to deliver the flag to the fallen immortal sect at night. Moreover, the sect leader will definitely send a disciple here to protect this place until the fallen immortal sect's disciple arrives. Zhang Ji added on. As for Yue Hua, she looked at Xiao Hua worriedly. She was afraid that Xiao Hua would suddenly break the formation. Chapter 48-51. Of course, Xiao Hua wanted to see what was inside the array, but after thinking about it, he didn't find anything special when he was repairing his body. Those big and small square things were definitely not rocks, but things used to set up the array. However, these things weren't made of special materials, so they didn't attract Xiao Hua's attention at all. Forget it, it's just the capital star array. This Xiao can set it up casually. Moreover, this Xiao's strength has already reached the 10th grade, why would I be greedy for these small advantages? Thinking of this, Xiao Hua smiled and said, Fairy, you don't worry, these things can't be seen in my eyes. Sigh, what a pity about these array flags. Hong Feng was still reluctant and looked into the distance. Without waiting for Hong Feng to finish speaking, Nuo Yeqing immediately smiled and said, Senior Zhang, where are you going? If you have time, why don't you come to my Chanhe sect? My sect master is very hospitable, and he might have something that Senior wants to know. Yu Hua's eyes lit up, and she immediately came to a realization. Since Xiao Hua could see that these were the array flags of the demon subduing star array, he should know the method of setting up the demon subduing star array. At the very least, he should be able to give some pointers, right? Senior. Yu Hua glanced at Lu Qingyu and Zhang Ji, and the three of them bowed at the same time and said, Junior has offended you previously, please forgive us. Junior would like to invite Senior to Xingyun Ridge, so that we can properly apologize to Senior. Yes, yes. Hong Feng also realized and hurriedly bowed and said, My Chan He sect protection array is too weak. We also need Senior Zhang's pointers. Yuhua's face immediately turned red. Their little thoughts were exposed by Hong Feng. Xiao Hua looked at Yuhua's shyness and turned to ask Nuo Yeqing, Does your Chan He sect have a map of the Yilin continent? Nuo Yeqing said cheerfully, Senior, this junior has only seen the map of the Feng Yen country in the sect, but the sect master definitely has it. If the sect master doesn't have it, my Chan He sect's disciples will find a way to help Senior find it. My Chan He sect has hundreds of thousands of disciples. It's definitely more convenient than Senior finding it alone. Since that's the case, let's go. Xiao Hua said with a smile. Senior, please. Nuo Yeqing was overjoyed and raised her hand to invite Xiao Hua to go first. Are there no flying boats? Xiao Hua looked at Lu Qingyu and the others strangely. They were all golden core cultivators. It was impossible that they didn't even have a flying magic tool, right? Yes, yes. Lu Qingyu hurriedly took out a palm-sized magic tool from the ring and activated it with his magic power. It turned into a flying boat that was more than 100 feet in size. After inviting Xiao Hua to board, he explained, Juniors sneaked out and didn't dare to make a big fuss, so we didn't want to use a flying boat. It's too late to hide anything now. Yuehua smiled. She knew that the array flag was very important to the fallen immortal sect. If the Chan He sect returned the array flag to the fallen immortal sect, they would definitely be on good terms with the fallen immortal sect. This was a great merit and they would definitely be rewarded. The place that spiritual master Huang Qiong chose to transcend the tribulation was very remote. Lu Qingyu didn't know why Nuo Yeqing passed by this place. In short, Lu Qingyu steered the flying boat and flew for half a day. When night fell, they flew to the location of a teleportation array. After passing through the teleportation array, they flew for the time it took to burn an incense stick before arriving at a place with undulating mountain ranges. There were green pine trees on the left side of the mountain peaks. Waves of heaven and earth spirit chi floated in the wind like clouds. The patrolling disciples in armor shuttled through the clouds. Xiaohua smiled. After so many years, he finally arrived at the place where the Taoist cultivators gathered. When the flying boat landed, a group of Foundation establishment cultivators had already flown over to investigate. When they saw Lu Qingyu and the others, they bowed and saluted, but their eyes were fixed on Xiaohua. Before Lu Qingyu and the others spoke, Nuo Yeqing introduced, This is Senior Zhang. He's a distinguished guest invited by my master. If possible, please send a message to the sect leader. The leading disciple was a little hesitant. Junior brother Nuo, it's not that I don't want to send a message, but these few days. Without waiting for the disciple to finish speaking, whoosh! A light shadow flew out from the mountain range and flew towards the left side of Xiaohua and the others. However, before the light shadow passed by, a divine sense swept over. Seeing that it was Lu Qingyu and the others, it immediately turned around and landed in a moment. It was a rather old late gold core stage old man. The old man hurriedly shouted, Martial nephew Lu, why are you still here? The sect leader is furious. Why aren't you going over? As he spoke, the old man's gaze fell on Xiaohua again. He asked curiously, Who is this? Lu Qingyu hurriedly bowed and said, Greetings, Martial Uncle Hu. This is Senior Zhang, whom I met in the Wild West mountain range. He has some important matters to discuss with the sect leader. Haha, this old man is Humubai. Greetings, fellow Taoist Zhang. The old man with the surname Hu smiled and cupped his hands. I'm Zhang Xiaohua. Xiaohua also smiled and politely returned the greeting. Humubai couldn't see through Xiaohua's cultivation, and Xiaohua's name was unfamiliar to him. In particular, since Xiaohua came with Lu Qingyu, he probably wasn't a particularly powerful cultivator. Therefore, after greeting Xiaohua, Humubai said to Lu Qingyu, If martial nephew wants to introduce fellow Taoist Zhang, it'd be better to wait a few days. Recently, the sect leader has lost his temper several times because of the matter in the Yulan Hall. Now, the sect leader can't take it anymore. He wants me to go to the outer sect and urge them to hurry up. Yes, this junior understands. Lu Qingyu knew that Humubai meant well. He smiled and said, However, Senior Zhang's matter is very important. This junior doesn't dare to delay. Well, since that's the case, go to the Yulan Hall first and ask the sect leader to take you there. Humubai nodded, cupped his hands at Xiaohua and left. See. Not far away, the patrolling disciple also said, Even Grandmaster Hu asked you to go to the Yulan Hall first. Don't make me send a message. All right. Nuo Yeqing was a little helpless. He said in a low voice, Senior, we're really too slow. It's fine, it's fine. Xiao Hua liked to keep a low profile the most and waved his hand nonchalantly. When Yue Hua saw this, she secretly liked it. She had also never seen such a secretive cultivator. However, when she saw that Xiao Hua's clothes were not very suitable for him, she couldn't help but think of something else. After flying past the patrolling disciples of the Jianghu sect, it didn't take long for them to arrive in front of a platform that was about a mile wide. There was a huge white jade door on the platform. The words Jianghu sect were written on it in a flamboyant style. There was a faint fluctuation of magic power on the door. The fluctuation was like water ripples that spread in all directions. It landed near the door and connected with other fluctuations, protecting the mountain range behind the white jade door. The Yulan Hall was one of the many halls on the mountain range. Xiao Hua landed in front of the mountain range with Yue Hua and the others. He didn't fly directly into the hall. Instead, he followed a sky ladder that shone with a fluorescent light in the night. He seemed to be walking slowly, but in fact he was climbing very quickly. Senior Zhang. Lu Qingyu had already spoken. He said in a low voice, "In my Jianghu sect, you can't fly directly to the main peak if you're not in the nascent soul realm. I don't know what realm you're in." Xiao Hua waved his hand and said, "It's fine, it's fine. I don't like etiquette and ceremony. A guest should follow the host." That's good, that's good. When Lu Qingyu heard this, he felt like he was in a dream. He couldn't believe his luck that he could meet such an expert who didn't put on airs. Of course, while Lu Qingyu believed in Xiao Hua, Zhang Ji muttered to himself. His confidence had been shaken, and he felt that Xiao Hua might be a liar. However, this thought only flashed through Zhang Ji's mind. Regardless of whether Xiao Hua was really a swindler or not, since Xiao Hua could take out the capital star array's array flag from the array, his strength was not something that Zhang Ji could reach. Moreover, Xiao Hua dared to come to the Jianghu sect and dared to face the head of the Jianghu sect. Xiao Hua couldn't be a liar. While they were talking, they had almost reached the end of the sky ladder. Although there were some disciples flying low between the palaces on the mountain peak, which looked a little lively, these people didn't make any big movements. Even the Dao sect cultivators who weren't afraid of the night liked the silence of the night. Damn it. But in this silence, a hoarse and angry voice came into Xiao Hua's ears. This is already the 17th batch, right? What? Why haven't even 10 suitable disciples been chosen? If so, how many disciples can my Jianghu sect recruit this year? If we can't even find suitable disciples, why does the Jianghu sect want my Yulan Hall? It's better to close the door early and go to other places. Oh. Xiao Hua was taken aback. His divine sense swept in the direction of the voice. Before he could find the location of the Yulan Palace, he had already seen more than 1,000 children around the age of 5 in the square in front of the palace. These children were not wearing much and were shivering in the night wind. However, each and every one of their small faces carried a kind of tenacity and expectation as they looked at the palace. This was a hall that was more than 1,000 feet high. Its style was simple and unadorned, which was very different from the Xiaoyu continent. There was a plaque above the door. This plaque was like a magnolia flower, and the 3 big words in the middle were Yulan Hall. There was no restriction on the door. A ray of light like Minghua stone penetrated through the door and fell to the ground, shining on several disciples in front of the door. Seeing Nuo Yeqing sneaking over stealthily, the disciple guarding the door hurriedly covered his mouth with his finger and motioned Nuo Yeqing to be quiet. Then he turned to look inside the hall and gently waved his right hand, indicating Nuo Yeqing to leave quickly. Unfortunately, Nuo Yeqing shrugged and looked helpless. She continued to approach slowly, which made the disciple feel helpless. Sure enough, just as Nuo Yeqing entered the hall, the voice inside shouted again, "Who is it? Don't you see that the disciples are being tested in the Yulan Hall?" Chapter 48-52. Disciple Nuo Yeqing greets Palace Master. Nuo Yeqing stuck out her tongue and hurriedly bowed at the door. You dare to come back. Where's your master? Why haven't I seen him for a day?" "Hee, congratulations Palace Master, congratulations Palace Master." Behind Nuo Yeqing, Lu Qingyu hurriedly flew out and bowed respectfully with a smile on his face. "Congratulations my ass." The voice inside said angrily, "I'm here supervising the array, where did you all go? If you don't explain it clearly today, I'll kick you out of Yulan Hall and down to Xingyun Ridge." "Palace Master, you've wronged me." Lu Qingyu cried, "I know that I'm afraid that I won't be able to complete the sect master's strict order this year, so I've been trying to find a way out. Today I've returned with a full load, why don't you reward me?" "You actually found 300 suitable disciples?" While they were speaking, A tall and sturdy old man's figure flashed and landed outside the door of the Yulan Palace. He grabbed Lu Qingyu's arm and peered out of the palace. This old man was dark and tall, like a general who had been on the battlefield. He was even more frightening than Hong Feng. Unfortunately, outside the hall, other than those disciples of Ho Li, there was only Xiao Hua and the others standing not far away. Where did the disciples come from? Damn it. The old man was a little angry and was about to curse. Yu Hua hurriedly shook the banner and handed it to the old man, saying, "Palace Master Xia, look, what is this?" "What is this?" The old man was stunned and asked curiously, "Are the 300 disciples in this banner?" "Palace Master, take a closer look." At this moment, of course, Zhang Ji was indispensable. He hurriedly stepped forward and reminded, "Look at this banner. What kind of array is this?" The old man looked for a while and shook his head. "I can't see it." As he spoke, the old man's lightning-like eyes swept towards Xiao Hua, who was accompanying Hong Feng. Xiao Hua looked at the middle-stage nascent soul old man, smiled and cupped his hands, saying, "I Zhang Xiaohua greets Palace Master Xia." "What's going on?" Palace Master Xia frowned and looked at Lu Qingyu. Lu Qingyu smiled and said, "Palace Master, please take a look at this flag and think about the Fallen Immortal Sect's protective mountain array." Fallen Immortal Sect's devil-subduing star formation? Palace Master Xia seemed to have realized something. Looking at the flag, he asked curiously, "This is the array flag of the devil-subduing star heavenly array? Where did you get it?" "We don't have that ability." Yuehua smiled. "This flag was given to us by Senior Zhang." "It's like this." Without waiting for Yuehua to finish her explanation, Palace Master Xia immediately understood something when she mentioned the demon-subduing star formation. His body trembled slightly and his eyes flashed with ecstasy. Roar. Palace Lord Xia let out a long howl and cupped his hands at the sky. "Thank the heavens for giving my Chanhe sect a way to survive." Then he bowed to Xiao Hua and said, "I am Xia Feng. Thank you for your righteous act, fellow Taoist Zhang." I don't dare." Xiao Hua hurriedly wanted to raise his hand, but Xia Feng had already bowed. Xiao Hua could only say modestly, "This is all thanks to Nua Yeqing. If he didn't find that place, how could I come here? This is an important matter. We can't delay it any longer. Fellow Taoist Zhang." Xia Feng stood up and hurriedly pulled Xiao Hua. He was about to soar into the sky, but he still said, "Please come with me to see the sect leader." However, when Xia Feng reached out his hand, he hesitated. After thinking for a while, he said with a smile, "I remember that the sect leader seems to be having a meeting with the elders in the Clear Heart Palace. He said that unless it's an emergency, no one can disturb him. I'm afraid that I'll have to wait until dawn if I go there. That's really disrespectful to fellow Taoist Zhang. How about this, fellow Taoist Zhang? You stay in my Yulan Palace and let Qing Yu and the others accompany you. After I report to the sect leader, I'll let the sect leader come to welcome you personally. How about that?" That's fine. Go and do your work." Xiao Hua smiled and waved his hand, indicating that Xia Feng should go quickly. Although the Chanhe sect was a small sect, in Xiao Hua's eyes, the entire sect was actually not inferior to the Imperial Thunder sect. He was very interested to see what the Chanhe sect was like. Xia Feng cupped his hands and activated the earth to escape. Xiao Hua looked at Xia Feng's back with a thoughtful expression. This was because he didn't need to use any magic to see the flaws in Xia Feng's cultivation. At the same time, he also saw that Xia Feng had been wandering around the gap between the early and middle stages of the nascent soul stage for a long time. If he couldn't break through within 10 years, it was unlikely that he would be able to reach the severed soul stage in this life. Hall Master. Before Xiao Hua could withdraw his gaze, another voice sounded out from within the Magnolia Hall, and then another young cultivator with a pale complexion and a beard charged out and shouted towards the sky. Unfortunately, Xia Feng didn't pay attention to him at all and disappeared into a group of palaces at the top of the mountain. Where did sect leader Xia go? The young man was also an early nascent soul stage cultivator. He looked at Lu Qingyu and the others in confusion and asked. Lu Qingyu didn't dare to be negligent. He hurriedly bowed and said, "Vice Sect Leader Yun, Sect Leader Xia went to the Mingxin Palace for something." "What's the matter? Why are you so reckless?" "Sect Leader told us not to disturb him." Vice Sect Leader Yun was a little unhappy. He looked at Xiao Hua and seemed to be waiting for Xiao Hua to come over and greet him. Xiao Hua only smiled and nodded at him. He didn't mean to come forward and greet him. Yu Hua hurriedly smiled and said, "It's like this, Vice Sect Leader Yun." However, before she finished speaking, Vice Sect Leader Yun waved his hand impatiently and said, "No need to report. Since sect leader Xia already knows, let him do it. Coming quickly. Tonight, we must find 20 children with good aptitude from these children. 20? Hong Feng exclaimed, Vice sect leader Yun, how is this possible? We have already identified tens of thousands of children before, but we didn't find more than 10. How can we find 20 now? Why are you looking at me? Vice sect leader Yun was even more unhappy. He scolded, It's not like you don't know the situation of the sect. These children are my Chanhe sects. At this point, Vice sect leader Yun glanced at Xiaohua vigilantly. He swallowed his words and changed his words, Anyway, this is the sect leader's order. Quickly follow the order. After speaking, Vice sect leader Yun turned and entered the Yulan Palace. He indeed looked very anxious. Yes, Vice sect leader Yun. Hong Feng and the others didn't dare to be negligent. They hurriedly bowed and greeted. Senior, please don't blame him. Yu Hua said in a low voice very considerately, Usually sect leader Xia is impatient, and Vice sect leader Yun is the one to fill in the gaps. Today, my Chanhe sect is indeed in some trouble, so Vice sect leader Yun is also anxious. Why would Xiaohua care about this? He waved his hand and said, It's okay, I'm just a passerby. Alright, what's the problem with Chanhe sect? Yu Hua forced a smile and said, Senior already said that you're just a passerby. We don't need to trouble you with these things. Then Yu Hua ordered Nua Yeching. Yeching quickly asked the disciples on night duty to prepare some spirit fruits and spirit wine. Yes. Lu Qingyu also came to his senses and shouted, Yeching, you stay here and accompany Senior Zhang. We'll go to the hall to help first. Yes, master. Nua Yeching rolled her eyes and was about to fly away. Xiaohua pulled her back and waved his hand. No need, you all go to the hall to do your work. Alright, can I enter the Yulan Palace? I want to see what you're doing. It's okay. Without waiting for Lu Qingyu to speak, Nua Yeching shouted, Didn't the sect leader say it clearly just now? Senior, please rest in the hall. Senior, feel free to enter. Lu Qingyu was a little hesitant. After all, Xiaofeng only asked Xiaohua to wait in the Yulan Palace. He didn't say that Xiaohua could enter the Yulan Palace. However, when he saw Nua Yeching winking at him, he smiled bitterly in his heart. This disciple of his had been clever since he was young. He was very cunning and often made strange things. His actions must have some profound meaning. Lu Qingyu smiled and said, In that case, Senior, please come in. How could Xiaohua not see Nua Yeching's funny face? However, the more he looked, the more he liked it. It was as if he was looking at Xiang Zhili in the past. Therefore, he nodded and stepped into the Yulan Palace. As soon as Xiaohua entered, he immediately felt a gaze. Without a doubt, it was Deputy Sect Leader Yun. However, although there was some hostility in Deputy Sect Leader Yun's eyes, he didn't linger on Xiaohua. How lively! Xiaohua didn't pay attention to the strange gaze. He stood at the door and looked into the depths of the hall. Unconsciously, a smile appeared on his face as he spoke. The hall was several li in size. There were 81 huge pillars supporting the roof of the hall. Those pillars were not ordinary dragon pillars. Instead, they were carved with the petals of magnolia flowers. A faint fluorescent light was emitted from the jade pillars. It was as if 81 huge magnolia flowers were blooming in the hall. Xiaohua sighed with emotion inside the palace hall. It was very lively and was divided into a dozen or so regions. Each region had over 100 children. Although these children were standing respectfully, they were still children after all. They couldn't help but whisper, and when the whispers increased, it became noisy. Around each area, there were a few aura-refining disciples walking around. They seemed to be maintaining order. However, because they were too tired, they didn't stop the children from whispering and yawning. In front of each area, there were 2 or 3 children sitting cross-legged. There were a few foundation-building disciples around the children. Some of them were holding ruler-like magic tools and pointing them at the children's foreheads. Some of them were holding different kinds of talismans. They activated their magic power and stuck them between the children's eyebrows. At the head of the hall was naturally the high platform. At this time, Deputy Sect Leader Yun was walking around on the high platform. His eyes were looking from one area to another, and his eyes were filled with anxiety. Around the high platform, there were a few golden core cultivators guarding various places. They were also anxiously looking at the disciples who were appraising. Chapter 48-53. After Yu Hua and the rest entered, they did not dare to delay and hurriedly flew to their respective areas. There were some children who had already been identified and seemed to be going through the second round of identification. Sigh. Xiaohua sighed. For some reason he thought of the situation when he entered the Imperial Thunder sect. Xue Xue's smile appeared spontaneously. This was his and Xue Xue's shared experience. Whether it was Fairy Hongxia or Princess Zixia, they did not. Nuo Yeqing stood by Xiaohua's side and observed his expression. When she saw Xiaohua's expression, she immediately shut her mouth and did not dare to make any more noise. She also looked at the main hall with worry. In the time it took to drink a cup of tea in the area closest to Xiaohua, 4 children had already been identified. Nuo Yeqing could clearly see that these 4 children's aptitudes were all ordinary. Not even 30% of the brilliance of the ruler-shaped magic tool had flashed. Furthermore, in order to confirm, the golden core cultivator at the side brought the child who had the highest brilliance to one side and used a spell to examine carefully. However, the result still disappointed the golden core cultivator. Sigh. Nuo Yeqing could not help but sigh. Her voice was unexpectedly filled with vicissitudes, similar to Xiaohua's sigh. Xiaohua glanced at Nuo Yeqing and said calmly, "What's wrong? Are you sighing because your sect can't find disciples with good aptitudes?" Nuo Yeqing opened her mouth, wanting to say something. However, looking at Vice Palace Master Yun on the high platform, she swallowed her words. After thinking for a while, she opened her mouth and said, "Yes, Senior. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth has changed. On the Yilin continent, not only is it difficult for cultivators to cultivate, it is also difficult to find disciples. I heard from my master that when they were selecting disciples, it was not so troublesome. Outstanding disciples would often appear. Now that these children are born with the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, their aptitudes have changed. It is simply not easy to choose. Especially in the past 100 years, the number of disciples that my Jianghu sect can recruit every year is less than 100. Furthermore, among the disciples that we recruit, those who have good aptitudes find it difficult to cultivate. Those who do not have good aptitudes find it easy to cultivate. Since that is the case, there is no harm in finding more." Xiaohua replied in a bad mood. When he entered the Imperial Thunder sect, he went through untold hardships. Of course, he knew the hardships of these disciples. Nuo Yeqing smiled bitterly and said, "Hall Master thought so too back then. But our Jianghu sect is just a small sect. We can't afford to be tossed around. Because of this, we even offended." Speaking up to here, Nuo Yeqing didn't dare to say anything more. She stole a glance at Xiaohua's expression. Unfortunately, Xiaohua was looking at a child sitting cross-legged not far away, ignoring Nuo Yeqing. Thus, Nuo Yeqing did not dare to overreach herself. Instead, she pointed at the child and said, "Senior, please take a look at this child. There are only 2 inches of blue light on the treasure ruler. If it was before, it would have indicated that he has a water attribute physique. However, his physique is heterogeneous and not suitable for cultivation. But now that senior brother doesn't dare to confirm it, and has to let another senior uncle check again. Actually, after the check, the results are most likely similar." Indeed, it was as Nuo Yeqing had said. The disciple did not dare to be too sure. After all, this child was a bit brighter than the other 2. The golden core cultivator in the distance brought the child to one side. After inspecting him, disappointment appeared on his face. He waved his hand and allowed the child to walk to the other side. On the other side, the children who had been eliminated were all dejected. Some of them were even sobbing softly. "Shut up." A foundation establishment disciple was obviously tired. Although he did not have the heart, there were too many crying children near him. He could not help but scold them. Several crying children hurriedly shut their mouths. However, large drops of tears fell unwillingly. The children tried their best to hold their breaths, not daring to make a sound. Their little faces were red from holding their breaths. Seeing this, Xiaohua's heart softened all of a sudden. He naturally understood the hardships of cultivation, and even more so, he knew the expectations of entering a cultivation sect. Thus, he opened his mouth and said, "You all are also ignorant. Since the spiritual energy of heaven and earth has changed, how can you still use the previous method to identify disciples? Moreover, the disciples you recruit are still using the previous method to cultivate. Aren't you courting death?" "The problem is," Nuo Yeqing answered casually, as if she had thought about this question many times. "If we don't use this method, what kind of method can we use? If we don't use the original method, can we still find a suitable one?" "Change," Xiaohua said decisively. "Change the method? Or change the method of recruiting disciples?" Nuo Yeqing seemed to be angry. She asked, "Senior, do you think it's so easy to change the method? If it was easy, the sect master would have changed it long ago. If we want to change the method, we also need to change the method of recruiting disciples. As Xiaohua spoke, he raised his hand and pointed at the disciple who had just been eliminated. He said, "This child has a mutated ice spirit root. If he had an ice attribute method, he would be a foundation establishment disciple with a little bit of cultivation." Ah? Nuo Yeching was shocked and blurted out, "What's an ice spirit root?" However, the moment he said that, Nuo Yeching was overjoyed. She cried out in surprise, "Senior, you can see with your naked eye? Nonsense." Xiaohua rolled his eyes at Nuo Yeching. This guy really doesn't see the human race's great sage as a senior, right? Senior. Nuo Yeching came to her senses. With a plop, she knelt on the ground and cried out, "Senior, please extend your hand and help my Chanhe sect." That's not necessary. Xiaohua already somewhat understood that the matter of the Yulan Palace was not as simple as recruiting disciples. However, he still smiled and said, "For the sake of recruiting disciples, you actually knelt? The Chanhe sect is this disciple's home. This disciple grew up here. This disciple is willing to do anything for the Chanhe sect." Nuo Yeching replied without hesitation. Xiaohua liked disciples who were loyal to the sect the most. Since Nuo Yeching was similar to Xiang Zhili, how could he just stand by and watch? Thus he smiled and said, "Deal." With just one word, Nuo Yeching's heart was finally at ease. She couldn't help but smile. She flew up from the ground and somersaulted in the air. With a face full of joy she said, "Thank you, Senior." This child? Xiaohua also smiled and asked, "How do you want this old man to help your Chanhe sect?" "Please wait a moment." Nuo Yeching hurriedly flew to Lu Qingyu's side. Lu Qingyu looked at Xiaohua in disbelief. Xiaohua nodded slightly. Thus, Lu Qingyu did not dare to delay and hurriedly flew up the stage with Nuo Yeching. As expected by Xiaohua, Vice Palace Master Yun frowned and looked at Xiaohua. Then he rushed to the child that Xiaohua pointed at and asked Lu Qingyu to send the child over. When the child came over, Vice Palace Master Yun asked the child to sit down cross-legged. However, Lu Qingyu raised his hand and touched the child's forehead. The child's face showed pain and his small body trembled slightly. After half a cup of tea's time, Vice Palace Master Yun's face showed disappointment. He waved his hand and asked Nuo Yeching to send the child away. He looked impatiently at Lu Qingyu and even at Xiaohua in the distance and walked to the other side of the stage. Lu Qingyu, who was standing on the high platform, felt a little awkward. However, he hesitated for a moment before bowing and saying something to Vice Hall Master Yun. Vice Hall Master Yun still waved his hand impatiently. Lu Qingyu felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted off his shoulders. He hurriedly flew down the platform and sent the children who had just been tested into the inner hall. Haha, not bad. Seeing that Vice Palace Master Yun did not stop Lu Qingyu's actions, Xiaohua secretly smiled and said, "Although Vice Palace Master Yun is a little arrogant, he does things impartially. He doesn't let personal matters affect his work." Unfortunately, Xiaohua still underestimated human nature. Although Vice Palace Master Yun did not act strangely, below the stage the two Golden Core cultivators saw Lu Qingyu's actions. They looked at each other and hurriedly flew up the stage to ask about the situation. At this time, Nuo Yeching had already turned around. She was about to explain something to Xiaohua with an apologetic expression when Xiaohua pointed at the two Golden Core cultivators and said with a smile, "What do these two want?" This. Nuo Yeching did not want to say, but hearing Xiaohua's determined tone, she could only smile and say, "These two martial uncles are called Yu Qingxiu and Wang Chu. Their cultivation is similar to my master's. Because there was a vacancy in Yulan Palace last year, the palace master wanted my master to take it. However, Vice Palace Master Yun was interested in them. Haha, where there are people there will be Jianghu. It's true." Xiaohua smiled and looked at Nuo Yeching. "What did your master say?" This. Nuo Yeching scratched her head and said in a low voice, "My master is a bit lazy. He said, whoever he wants, ha." Xiaohua laughed and immediately thought of the situation when they broke the formation that day. At that time there was a sound from time to time. It must be the result of Lu Qingyu being lazy. Xiaohua could not help but think, this guy actually dared to tease me like this. Today I must teach him a lesson. So Xiaohua said in a low voice, "Yeching, do you want your master to be a vice palace master?" "Of course I do." Nuo Yeching's answer almost made Xiaohua fall. If master becomes a vice palace master, Junior will have more spiritual wine to drink. Deal? Xiaohua nodded. "Take me to where the disciple selection is." "Okay." Nuo Yeching immediately understood what Xiaohua wanted to do. She rolled her eyes and agreed without hesitation. Xiaohua did not fly up. Instead he slowly walked over. Lu Qingyu saw Xiaohua coming over and hurriedly greeted him. When he saw that Vice Palace Master Yun did not pay attention to Xiaohua's suggestion, he wanted to avoid this matter and did not go back to explain to Xiaohua. Now that he saw Xiaohua coming over, he hurriedly smiled and said, "Senior, Vice Palace Master Yun thinks that Senior." "No need to say more." Xiaohua coldly waved his hand and said, "He has eyes but can't see. That's his problem. I can't delay the important matters of your Chanhe sect because of him." Xiaohua's words didn't have any intention of avoiding people. Blind as a bat didn't speak loudly, but Xiaohua knew that Vice Hall Master Yun definitely heard him. This was because from the moment he started walking, Vice Hall Master Yun's divine sense had been circling around him. Yes, yes. Lu Qingyu's forehead was covered in sweat. Thinking that Xiaohua was angry, he fiercely glared at Nuo Yeqing, who was taking pleasure in his misfortune. He still stammered, "Senior is right, but, vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it, reward it, and thank you for all forms of support." Chapter 48-54. But what about? Xiaohua's tone was cold as he said, "It's not easy for me to be in the mood to help you. Tell me, is the future of your Chanhe sect more important or Deputy Palace Master Yun's face more important?" "Of course the future of my Chanhe sect is more important." Lu Qingyu stammered, but can't Senior wait for a moment? I'll talk to Deputy Palace Master Yun again. I'll leave if you tell me," Xiaohua said firmly. "Master." Nuo Yeqing added fuel to the fire. "Senior Zhang said that not only can he help us choose disciples, but he can also teach us the secret method of choosing disciples. He can even modify our cultivation method to adapt to the current spiritual energy of heaven and earth." "Ah? Really?" Lu Qingyu was so excited that his face turned red. He couldn't believe his ears. "When did I say that I'll modify your cultivation method?" Xiaohua glared at Nuo Yeqing and scolded, "I only said that I can modify, please. Lu Qingyu heard the leeway in Xiaohua's tone. He didn't think at all and hurriedly stretched out his hand, almost pulling Xiaohua's sleeve. "Stop pulling. If you continue your clothes will be torn," Xiaohua said angrily. Yes, I understand." Lu Qingyu was embarrassed and let go. He seemed to understand that if it weren't for his clothes, this mysterious senior might not care about the affairs of Chanhe sect. "What do you want to do?" Unfortunately, before Xiaohua could walk to the group of children, the two gold core cultivators named Yu Qingxiu and Wang Chu flew over and blocked Xiaohua. "Yu Qingxiu, Wang Chu, what do you mean by this?" Lu Qingyu was unhappy. "This is the area that I'm responsible for. It doesn't seem to have anything to do with you two, right? Deputy Palace Master Yun thinks that junior brother Lu is not suitable to be responsible here, so he asked us to take over." Yu Qingxiu smiled brightly, but he looked like a smiling tiger. Lu Qingyu didn't shrink back and said lightly, "If it's Deputy Palace Master Yun's intention, please come and tell me that you don't seem to be qualified." TSK. Another Wang Chu smacked his lips and said sarcastically, "Lu Qingyu, who do you think you are? How dare you make Vice Palace Master Yun come here personally? It is already a great crime for you to lead outsiders into my Yulan Hall to investigate the recruitment of disciples of my Chanhe sect. Now you are even using an outsider to disrupt the recruitment of disciples in my Yulan Hall. It seems that my Chanhe sect will not be able to recruit suitable disciples this year. You are part of this. Perhaps you are colluding with the Flying Shadow sect to kill my Chanhe sect." "Damn it." Lu Qingyu was furious. He was about to open his mouth to speak. Swoosh. The sound of wind suddenly appeared. He saw a wicker-sized fireball flying through the air. It flew straight at Wang Chu's face. Wang Chu didn't expect that someone would suddenly attack him in the Yulan Hall. He was shocked and hurriedly raised his hand. Swoosh. A smear of green water appeared and blocked the fireball. Boom. With a loud explosion, both the fireball and the water were annihilated. However, the moment the fireball disappeared, another thumb-sized flame flew out with a swish and rushed to the top of Wang Chu's head with lightning speed. Pa! A crisp sound was heard, and the flame fell on Wang Chu's head. Of course, this flame couldn't cause any harm to a golden core cultivator. However, when the flame fell on Wang Chu's head, it made him extremely embarrassed. Scram! At this time Hong Feng's voice sounded behind Lu Qingyu. "When I am testing, I hate it when people are noisy." Scram! Lu Qingyu also said angrily, This is where I select my disciples. It was personally appointed by Palace Master Xia. Even Vice Palace Master Yun doesn't have the right to take it back. If you want to take it back, go to Mingxin Hall and report to Palace Master Xia first. Damn it. Wang Chu was humiliated and angry. He looked at Hong Feng and said, "You dare to use magic in the Yulan Hall? Bah. If I don't use magic in the Yulan Hall, how can I select my disciples? If I don't drive away the noisy people, how can I select my disciples calmly?" Hong Feng had a bad temper and was already scolding. "If you continue to disturb me here, it will be your responsibility if I can't find the 20 disciples today." Yu Qingxiu looked at Lu Qingyu with a smile and said, "It seems that senior brother Lu doesn't have Vice Palace Master Yun in his eyes. Since that's the case, I can only report to Vice Palace Master Yun that you treat Vice Palace Master Yun's words as farts?" Scram scram scram. Who cares who? Lu Qingyu was really angry and said scram 3 times in a row. He understood that he and the others had already done a great service by getting the array flag of the Heavenly Cycle Demon subduing star array. Whether it was Palace Master Xia or the sect leader, they would definitely not blame him for today's mistake. What's more, Lu Qingyu didn't feel that he had done anything wrong today. Wang Chu wanted to flare up, but Hong Feng kept talking about selection. It was not something that a reckless man like him could think of. He unconsciously glared fiercely at Yuehua, who was not far away, and helplessly wanted to go back with Yu Qingxiu. As if the owner of a dog would definitely come out after hitting it, Vice Palace Master Yun's voice sounded at this time. "Cough cough, what's going on? Hong Feng, how can you use an offensive talisman in the Yulan Hall?" Although Vice Palace Master Yun's words were directed at Hong Feng, his eyes fell on Xiaohua. Vice Palace Master Yun was not a fool. He had already noticed that Xiaohua was different. Not only because he couldn't see through Xiaohua's strength, but also because of Xia Feng's sudden departure earlier. However, Vice Palace Master Yun didn't think that Xiaohua could be that powerful. Moreover, he didn't believe that Lu Qingyu and the other Golden Core cultivators could be acquainted with any high-level cultivators. Especially, how could a high-level cultivator be able to stand in front of him so quietly? Vice Palace Master Yun? Hong Feng hesitated for a moment before replying, "Don't you know? Sect Master has already given a death order. Tonight we must find 20 disciples who can inherit our Chanhe sect's Dao techniques." Disciple has been racking his brains for the selection, but Wang Chu actually caused trouble for Disciple. Disciple suspects that he is a spy from the Flying Shadow sect. "Damn it, you're the spy from the Flying Shadow sect." Wang Chu didn't dare to let Hong Feng speak anymore. He hurriedly said, "I'm only here on Vice Palace Master's orders, to chase away the people who are disturbing the sect's selection, right?" "That's right." Vice Palace Master Yun nodded and said, "Today the Yulan Hall is already chaotic. If we don't restrain ourselves, how can we complete Sect Master's death order? Therefore, I ask those who have nothing to do to leave the Yulan Hall first." After saying this, Vice Palace Master Yun looked at Xiaohua, but Xiaohua didn't even bother to look at him. Vice Palace Master Yun had no choice but to glare sternly at Lu Qingyu. If it was before, Lu Qingyu wouldn't even think about it. He would just say, "Who cares?" and turn around to leave. He couldn't be bothered to talk to these people. However, today was different. He had already keenly felt the meaning of Xiaohua's words from Nuo Yeching's words. A cultivator who could change the cultivation method at will. This was a powerful person that even the sect master of the Chanhe sect had to look up to. If the Chanhe sect wanted to get out of this predicament, this was definitely one of the opportunities. Lu Qingyu didn't want to give up this opportunity. Therefore Lu Qingyu had no way out. He immediately said, "Don't even think about it. This is the position that Palace Master assigned to Disciple. Disciple still wants to choose a suitable disciple for the sect and complete the sect master's orders." Vice Palace Master Yun was furious at this time. He said coldly, "We've been busy for a few days and haven't chosen many. You think you can choose by staying here?" "What? I can really choose." Lu Qingyu retorted, "If I choose, what should I do?" "Hee Lu Qingyu, I know what you're thinking." Vice Palace Master Yun looked at Lu Qingyu, then looked at Yu Qingxiu and Wang Chu. He said with a smile, "If you can choose 20 suitable disciples, I'll recommend you to be the deacon of Yulan Palace. However, I'll say this first. If you can't find 20 disciples, you'll have to ask Palace Master Xia." Vice Palace Master Yun didn't finish his words, but Lu Qingyu didn't care at all. He replied without hesitation, "No problem." After saying that, Lu Qingyu respectfully bowed to Xiaohua and said, "Senior, Please be wise and help my Chanha sect to choose a suitable disciple. Help my Chanha sect to get out of this predicament. Vice Palace Master Yun looked at Xiaohua with a somewhat uncertain expression. He had also carefully looked at the previous child. Whether it was the physical attribute or the bone condition, it was not good. It could barely meet the requirements of the Chanha sect to choose a disciple. It was impossible for him to be the genius that Lu Qingyu mentioned. Could it be, this cultivator really has some secret technique that can find the so-called spiritual root? Vice Palace Master Yun thought to himself. And this child with the spiritual root can use the mutated spiritual chi of heaven and earth to cultivate? But this spiritual root, what is it? Thinking of this, Vice Palace Master Yun couldn't help but look at Yuehua and the others. He wanted to ask about Xiaohua's origin, but unfortunately Yuehua, who was outside the palace gate, was stopped by him impatiently when she wanted to report to him. Just when Vice Palace Master Yun was in a dilemma, suddenly, a voice was transmitted in a low voice. Vice Palace Master Yun slightly raised the corner of his mouth, and his eyes faintly glanced at Zhang Ji in the distance. Since Xiaohua had the intention to help Lu Qingyu, he didn't hold back and walked towards those children whose faces were filled with confusion and longing. He didn't use any magic power, nor did he use any divine ability. He didn't even look at them. His feet almost didn't touch the ground as he walked through these children. He raised his hand and randomly pointed. In a short while he found 13 children. This many? Lu Qingyu was a little dumbfounded. Yes. Xiaohua looked at these children who stood up, and his face was filled with ecstasy. He used his hand to point at them one by one and said with a smile, "He has the wood spiritual root, he has the fire spiritual root. Oh, this one is not simple. It's a mutated wind spiritual root. P.S. Fellow cultivators who like this book, please subscribe to it at Chidien, vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it, reward it, and thank you for all kinds of support." Chapter 48-55. Yes. Nuo Yeqing was overjoyed. She listened carefully and took note of everything. Vice Palace Master Yun? Wang Chu said in a strange tone, if the selection of disciples was so simple, why would my Chanha sect set up my Yulan Hall? Shut up! Vice Palace Master Yun scolded before Wang Chu could finish. How could a cultivator who could break the heavenly cycle demon subduing star formation be easy to deal with? Wang Chu shrunk back in fear and didn't dare to say anything. Vice Palace Master Yun bowed respectfully and said, Junior Yun Songyu, please forgive me for my rudeness. How could Xiaohua lower himself to the level of a nascent soul cultivator? Moreover, Vice Palace Master Yin didn't do anything wrong, so Xiaohua waved his hand and turned to look at the hundreds of children in the flood peak and walked over. Huh? What are you waiting for? Why don't you hurry up and choose? Xiaofeng's angry voice came from the door before Xiaohua could get close. If you delay the sect master's matter, I'll take your heads. At this moment, the other disciples in the entire Magnolia Palace had already noticed Lu Qingyu's abnormality. They all stopped their selection and watched as Xiaohua casually selected a dozen or so children. Everyone's faces were filled with astonishment. Yu Qingxiu's face lit up when he heard Xiaofeng's voice. Just as he was about to open his mouth to speak, he grabbed Wang Chu and said, Quick now! Otherwise you'll lose your deacon position. Lord Temple Master. Wang Chu immediately called out. Xiaofeng came over and asked, What's the matter? Good Palace Master, you should know that this is an expert that senior apprentice Brother Lu has invited from the outside. In just the time it takes to brew a cup of tea, he has already picked out 14 disciples. If nothing unexpected happens, tonight, our Yulan Palace will definitely be able to complete the sect master's important task. Wang Chu said seriously, Senior Brother Lu has made a great contribution to our Yulan Hall. I admire him very much. The sect master must reward him greatly. There's such a thing? Xiaofeng looked at Xiaohua with some confusion and asked, Fellow Taoist Zhang has such a secret technique? You? Beside Wang Chu, Yu Qingxiu was so angry that his nose was almost crooked. He grumbled in a low voice, Aren't you letting Lu Qingyu off by doing this? He, my deacon, is also your deacon. Wang Chu smiled faintly. His body unconsciously moved a few feet away from Yu Qingxiu, and approached Lu Qingyu whether intentionally or not. Since Xiaofeng had returned, Xiaohua simply stopped and looked at him. After Xiaofeng finished speaking, he smiled apologetically and said, I'm sorry, fellow Taoist Zhang. The sect master is in a meeting with the elders. I couldn't enter the Clear Heart Palace, so I handed the banner to the disciple guarding the palace. I was worried about the selection of the Yulan Palace, so I hurried back. Oh, I see. Xiaohua nodded and casually responded. Then he walked in front of the children, raised his hand and pointed at 5 of them. He smiled and said, "These 5 are all commonly seen earth spirit veins. They can't be considered particularly outstanding, but they can still cultivate." Fellow Taoist. Xiaofeng was dumbfounded and he almost blurted out, "Are you kidding me? Who would treat the selection of disciples as child's play?" "My family." Xiaohua answered with a smile. Then he turned to Lu Qingyu and said, "Lu Qingyu, I've already done what I promised you." Senior. Before Lu Qingyu could speak, Nua Yeqing hurriedly called out, "Look, there are so many children in the hall. They all want to cultivate in our Jianghu school. It's fine if their aptitudes are ordinary, but do you want those with excellent aptitudes to be buried in the mortal world?" Xiaohua angrily glared at Nua Yeqing. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry and said, "What does this have to do with me?" Senior. Deputy Sect Master Yun also came to his senses and hurriedly said respectfully, "I'm really blind. Since you can help our Jianghu school so easily, can you help us to the end?" Seeing that Deputy Sect Master Yun also became serious, Xiaofeng hurriedly flew in front of a child and raised his hand to point at the child's forehead. The child's body trembled slightly. After a moment, Xiaofeng withdrew his hand and looked at Xiaohua in confusion. He said, "Fellow Taoist Zhang, why do you think this child is a promising talent? In my opinion, he has inferior aptitudes." "Because you don't know how to identify the spiritual root," Xiaohua said with a smile. "What is the spiritual root?" Xiaofeng asked. Xiaohua shook his head. "With your cultivation, it's impossible for you to understand the meaning of the spiritual root." Hiss. Xiaofeng sucked in a breath of cold air and hurriedly said respectfully, "Senior, please teach me." "You don't need to listen." Xiaohua said indifferently, "You can't live for more than 10 years and you can't cultivate to the middle stage of the nascent soul realm. How can you understand the spiritual root?" Xiaohua's words were like a thunderbolt that stunned Xiaofeng all of a sudden. In addition to being surprised, his eyes were full of sadness and desolation. He clearly knew that his cultivation had not improved since 10 years ago, and he could clearly feel that the end of his life was approaching. He had never told anyone about this situation, not even the head of the Jianghu school. Of course, he felt that Xiaohua's words were a bit alarmist, because he estimated that his life was only 50 years. Blah. Hong Feng knelt on the ground and said, "Senior, please save my sect master. This junior deserves to die." Vice Sect Master Yin also knelt down. He did not care about his dignity as a nascent soul realm cultivator and said, "This junior was blind and offended senior. This junior begs senior for forgiveness and help my sect master." When Vice Sect Master Yin knelt down, the other disciples could not help but kneel down as well. Xiaohua sighed as he looked at Xiaofeng. He did not expect that this boorish man would be so loved by the disciples of the Yulan Palace. However, at the same time he was also helpless. Because although he could help Xiaofeng at this time, he had no way to help Xiaofeng. Because his rejuvenation pill was in the space and at this time he could not enter the space at all. "Everyone get up." Seeing Xiaohua in a difficult position, how could Xiaofeng not know the reason? He raised his hand and helped the disciples to their feet, including Vice Sect Master Yun, and scolded, "A person's life and death is in the hands of the heavens. Although Senior Zhang's cultivation is profound, he does not have the ability to reverse the situation. Do not make things difficult for him." AI. Vice Sect Master Yin got up. How could he not have such thoughts? Although the Yilan continent's Taoist sects were powerful and had thousands of powerful cultivators, he had never heard of a cultivator who could defy the heavens and change his fate. He was just hoping for a fluke and wanted to ask Xiaohua for help. "It's fate." Xiaohua looked at Xiaofeng's calm and said, "Xiaofeng, your fate is not good." Hearing this, Xiaofeng was even more shocked. He hurriedly bowed and said, "Yes, this junior understands. Death is not the end but a new beginning." Xiaohua said again, "Your cultivation method is wrong. When you condensed your yuanying, it was already flawed. Even if you can prolong your life, it is still very unlikely that you can cultivate to the late yuanying stage. Senior can actually." At this time, Vice Sect Master Yun did not dare to have the slightest doubt. He knew that everything that Lu Qingyu and Nua Yeqing had said was true. "Yes, I'm the one who is most aware of my situation," Xiaofeng said respectfully, "because this disciple does not have much time left. This disciple is worried about the Chanha sect. Therefore this disciple is much more harsh than before." Xiaohua looked at this Yuanning cultivator who was exhausting himself for the sect and could not help but think of Kai Wuxia. There were thousands of evil people in this world, but the loyal ones were also similar. Xiaofeng did not care about Xiaohua's expression and continued to say, "If possible, I would like to ask Senior to help my Chanhe sect. This selection of disciples is too important for my Chanhe sect." "Of course," Xiaohua said with a smile, "this is just a small matter." Saying this, Xiaohua walked towards the children not far away. Xiaofeng hurriedly smiled and said, "There is no need to trouble Senior to use his magic power. Senior, please sit high and let these children line up." "Ha, there is no need." Xiaohua waved his hand and said, "These children are only 4 or 5 years old. They're already tired. Although this old man is old, my energy is much stronger than theirs. Let me go." Xiaofeng said shamefully, "This junior understands." Then he said to Lu Qingyu and Nuo Yeqing, "You two quickly record." "Yes, sect master." Lu Qingyu and Nuo Yeqing took out their jade slips and accompanied Xiaohua. Xiaohua pointed out one child and they each recorded one in their jade slips. There were nearly 2,000 children in the Yulan Palace. It seemed that they had all been selected in advance. Therefore Xiaohua found a lot of children with spiritual roots. There were more than 200 children, which made Xiaofeng very happy. After all the children were selected, Xiaohua did not wait for Xiaofeng to speak and said, "Let the thousands of children outside the door in." "Yes, this junior will do it right away." Deputy Sect Master Yun did not dare to delay and hurriedly wanted to go out. At this time Xiaofeng thought of something and hurriedly shouted, "By the way, Tsongyu, where are the children who were eliminated before? I remember that most of them were not sent back. Quickly send them over." "This?" Deputy Sect Master Yun was a little embarrassed and said in a low voice, "The disciples who were sent back by my Yulan Palace have been handed over to the outer sect disciples. I am afraid it will not be easy to find them back. Why are there so many buts?" Xiaofeng raised his eyebrows and shouted, "This is a rare opportunity. Senior Zhang is in my Yulan Palace. If he leaves, I'm afraid we won't even have time to cry." After that, Xiaofeng tried to smile and said to Xiaohua, "Am I right, Senior?" Of course Xiaofeng was playing a little trick. He did not ask for Xiaohua's opinion in advance and ordered Yun Tsongyu to find the children who were eliminated before. At this time he asked Xiaohua in return, which obviously meant that what was done could not be undone. However, Xiaohua did not care too much and said with a smile, "Yes, what Sect Master Xiaofeng said is reasonable. P.S. Fellow cultivators who like this book, please subscribe to it at Chidian, vote for it, give it a reward, and..." Chapter 4856. Xiaofeng heaved a sigh of relief. He hurriedly nodded at Yun Tsongyu, who flew out of the hall with a look of ecstasy on his face. Not long after, the children outside the hall began to gradually enter. However, before Xiaohua could begin to select disciples for the Yulan Hall, he saw Yun Tsongyu return with a gloomy face and whispered to Xiaofeng. When Xiaofeng heard it, he was like a firecracker being carried by a candle. Ting. He flew out of the high platform with a "Damn it." He muttered to himself. "Who's the one that deserves to die? Who dares to make Palace Master Xia angry?" Xiaofeng had just flown to the front of the hall when several figures flew in from outside. The first to speak was a loud and clear voice with a kind of joy. "Oh, Sect Master?" Xiaofeng's figure suddenly stopped. He looked at the middle-aged man who came in first and asked curiously, "Aren't you in the Clear Heart Hall discussing matters with the elders? Why are you suddenly here?" Xiaohua heard the voice and looked over. Standing in front of Xiaofeng was a late Yuanning stage cultivator in his 40s. This cultivator was tall and his face was as white as jade. A pair of sword-like eyebrows slanted into his temples. His thin lips were slightly upturned, carrying a kind of thick smile. Xiaohua looked at this Yuanning stage cultivator, and the latter naturally looked back at Xiaohua, who was like the moon surrounded by stars. "Sect Master Lu saw the banner you sent over. How can he still discuss matters calmly?" Behind the Yuanning stage cultivator stood 2 men and a woman. The woman was also a charming woman in her 40s. Seeing that Xiaofeng's words were a bit abrupt, she couldn't help but smile and say, "So? I hurried over with the elders." Yes. Xiaofeng slapped his forehead and said, "This disciple was carried away by the good news of the Yulan Hall and forgot about the great heavenly cycle demon subduing star formation." "What good news is there in the Yulan Hall?" The Yuanning stage cultivator was stunned and asked curiously. At the same time, his gaze moved away from Xiaohua and looked at other places in the Yulan Hall. The joy on Xiaofeng's face did not fade. Just as he was about to explain, the woman smiled and said, Sect Master did not greet the guests first and instead asked about other things. Isn't that too rude? Indeed. The nascent soul cultivator retracted his gaze and looked at Xiaohua. He cupped his hands and said, I'm Lu Hanhuan, the sect master of Chanhe sect. Greetings, fellow Taoist. Xiaohua smiled and returned the greeting, I am Zhang Xiaohua. These are the 3 elders of the Chanhe sect. Lu Hanhuan raised his hand and introduced the 3 elders behind him. The woman cupped her hands and bowed. I am Yu Zhuohong. Greetings, fellow Taoist Zhang. Another short old man smiled and said, I'm Gao Cheng. Greetings, fellow Taoist Zhang. The tall, yellow-skinned elder looked at Xiaohua suspiciously, but he didn't bow. Instead he said, Pang Luxing greets fellow Taoist. From the looks of it, if not for sect head Lu's introduction, he probably wouldn't have even told Xiaohua his name. Hehe, greetings to Elder Yu, Elder Gao and Elder Pang. Xiaohua didn't put on any airs, nor did he salute. He raised his hand to return the salute and replied with a smile. Xiaofeng patiently waited for sect head Lu to finish greeting Xiaohua. Before Xiaohua finished speaking, he immediately shouted, Sect head Lu, you are late. You didn't see the scene that shocked all the disciples of the Yulan Palace. Then Xiaofeng explained the situation of Xiaohua's disciple selection. Although Xiaofeng said it simply, Lu Hanhuan and the others were shocked after hearing it. Xiaofeng said, I ordered Yun Songyu to bring back the returned children from the outer sect, but that damn Fan Lu actually said, he had ordered the outer sect disciples to send those returned children back tomorrow morning, and they can't. Lu Hanhuan hurriedly waved his hand to stop Xiaofeng from continuing to expose the truth. He turned to Gao Cheng and said, Elder Gao, please go. Yes, I understand. Gao Cheng nodded and turned around to leave the Yulan Palace. Only now did Lu Hanhuan fly in front of Xiaohua and say with a smile, I'm very honored to actually be able to see a new method of selecting disciples on this day when the world's spiritual energy is annihilated. I wonder if fellow Taoist Zhang can make a move now and broaden my horizons? Of course. Xiaohua replied with a smile. He looked at the children who had entered the Yulan Palace and lined up neatly. He pointed at them and said, This is a variant of the wind spiritual root. As long as he is cultivated well, he can cultivate to the nascent soul stage. This is a water spiritual root, so he can cultivate to the late gold core stage. This is a 5-element spiritual root, so he can cultivate to the early gold core stage. Seeing that Xiaohua had only glanced over and casually commented like a budding calf in the marketplace, Pang Luxing couldn't help but snort disdainfully. He said, Fellow Taoist Zhang, this old man sees that you haven't formed any hand seals, and you haven't even activated your Dharma eye, spirit gaze and other divine abilities. On what basis do you say that these children with ordinary aptitudes have extraordinary aptitudes? Xiaohua didn't even raise his eyes. He still pointed with his hand and said. After half a cup of tea, he raised his eyes again and glanced at Pang Luxing. He said indifferently, It doesn't matter if you believe it or not. I just told the truth. It doesn't matter if your Chanhe sect believes it or not. Haha. Lu Hanhuan smiled and said, Fellow Taoist Zhang, please don't blame me. Although Elder Pang's words are not pleasant to hear, there is some truth in them. This one knows that you are an expert. However, this one also has a question. For example, this child. As he spoke, Lu Hanhuan pulled over the little girl that Xiaohua had pointed out as having a variant wind spiritual root. He raised his hand and tapped the space between her eyebrows. A moment later he said, Although I can feel that her bones are somewhat light, the bones of an ordinary little girl should be like this. And in other aspects, she is not particularly different from ordinary girls. How can fellow Taoists say that she will definitely be able to cultivate to the nascent soul stage? This so-called variant wind spiritual root. What is it? Where can this one see it? I already told Xiaofeng just now. What is a spiritual root? It is really hard to explain. The cultivation method that you all cultivate doesn't involve these aspects. Even if I explained it, you all wouldn't understand. Xiaohua replied with a smile. You all only know that this girl has a variant spiritual root that ordinary people don't have. In the future, as long as it is a wind-type cultivation method, she will be able to grasp it very well. She will be able to cultivate 70% faster than ordinary disciples. Xiaohua's words were like a fraud. Pang Luxing had already seen Xiaohua as a liar. He couldn't help but sneer, how is that possible? Pang Liuxing's words were very rude, but Xiaohua only smiled and didn't care. Pang Liuxing's words and attitude, compared to the people of Xiao Empire who had abandoned Xiaohua, were like a cool breeze. It didn't cause any ripples in Xiaohua's heart. He only smiled and said to Lu Hanhuan, "You only need to follow I's words. After 10 years, you will naturally know whether it is true or not." "What's the use of 10 years? Lu Hanhuan waved his hand and said mournfully, "The spiritual energy of heaven and earth in the Yilin continent has changed greatly. Most of the cultivation methods of my Chanhe sect are no longer suitable. This so-called variant spiritual root, even if it is a genius, will not be able to cultivate to a shocking level in 10 years. Forget it. Rather than letting him be buried in my Chanhe sect, why not let him enter the fallen celestial sect?" "Sect master." Without waiting for Lu Hanhuan to finish, Xiaofeng immediately shouted with a hoarse voice, "How can you say this? Although my Chanhe sect is a small sect, but we have been standing in Xingyun Ridge for so many years. My Chanhe sect has also experienced many ordinary storms. The current predicament is really nothing. As long as my Chanhe sect is united, we will definitely be able to get through it." Lu Hanhuan shook his head slightly and looked at Xiaofeng. He smiled bitterly. "Xiaofeng, you don't understand what I am saying. Chanhe sect's current predicament. I actually don't care about it at all. If I can't even solve such a small problem, how can I be worthy of being the sect master? Not to mention, you have also found the array flag of the heavenly demon subduing star array for my Chanhe sect. With this array flag, the fallen celestial sect will definitely send disciples over. My Chanhe sect's crisis has actually been resolved. What I am talking about is the life and death of thousands of small sects in the Yilin continent." As he spoke, Lu Hanhuan looked at Xiaohua and smiled apologetically. "I am not afraid of being laughed at by fellow Taoist Jiang. In the Fengyan country, almost 20 small sects like my Chanhe sect have been annihilated in the past 100 years. And my Chanhe sect has actually been struggling at death's door. Not only because we can't recruit suitable disciples, but also because we don't have suitable cultivation methods. What's more, our small sects don't occupy the spiritual veins, and our disciples don't have enough crystals to cultivate. Especially in the past 200 years, the quality of the elixirs refined by my Chanhe sect has been deteriorating. Not only do they not have the original effect, sometimes they even backfire on the meridians. Under such circumstances, even if there is a disciple with peerless talent, how can my Chanhe sect nurture him?" Sigh. Hearing Lu Hanhuan speak of his difficulties, Pang Luxing also sighed. He looked at Xiaohua and said, "Fellow Taoist Zhang, don't blame me for being picky. As a small sect, my Chanhe sect has some foundation in the mountain gate. It is precisely because it has been maintained for so many years that it has long attracted some itinerant cultivators' covetous eyes. Previously, there were also many so-called experts who used the name of guiding the way to deceive my Chanhe sect's crystals. When the world is changing, which senior doesn't hide in the blessed land and think hard about how to deal with it? Which expert doesn't hide their cultivation? It's better to avoid trouble. Who would care about the life and death of my Chanhe sect?" Hearing this, Yu Zhuohong also echoed, "Elder Pang is right. My sect master is kind-hearted. Although he has seen through those clumsy scams sometimes, he still thinks about the difficulties of others and will always take out some crystals to send them off. Although it's not much each time, it can't be helped. The elders have already said it many times. Vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it, reward it, and thank you for all forms of support." Chapter 4857. Hee. Xiaohua smiled and raised his hand. "Elders, there's no need to say anything more. This poor Taoist already understands what you mean. This poor Taoist was just passing by and happened to have some fate with Nuo Yeching. Therefore, I casually extended my hand to help Nuo Yeching. If you don't believe me, then forget it." Unexpectedly, Nuo Yeching suddenly stepped out from the crowd and knelt in front of Xiaohua. She kowtowed and said, "Senior, this junior knows that you are an expert. Sect leader and others may have too many misgivings and dare not say it out loud. This junior has heard from senior that senior can modify a cultivation method to adapt to the changes in the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Therefore, this junior earnestly asks senior to help my Chanhe school. No, even if it's to help that poor little girl, don't let her talent be drowned in the mortal world. Can you help her modify a cultivation method?" "Master." The little girl was really smart. Although she was only about 5 years old, she already understood. She hurriedly knelt down and crawled over on her knees. She cried, "Master, please take pity on Xiu." Xiaohua was stunned and said in surprise, "You're called Xi'er? What's your surname?" The little girl was also stunned. She immediately kowtowed respectfully and said, "Master, my surname is Zhu and my name is Xi'er." "See." Xiaohua sucked in a breath of cold air. He couldn't help but think of the Zhu family's descendant in Jianghu city of the Xiaoyu continent. That poor However, Xiaohua carefully looked at the little girl and then shook his head slightly. Although this little girl had the same surname as Zhu Xie of Jing Fan Qi, her foundation was completely different. There were no traces of reincarnation. It could only be a coincidence. Xie. Xiaohua smiled and asked, "Your parents, are they all well?" "Master." Zhu Xie replied obediently, "Xie's parents are all well. They all hope that Xie can enter the Chanhe school so that they can hold their heads high." "Haha, this child, you really know how to climb up a pole." Xiaohua laughed and raised his hand to pat Zhu Xie's head. He said, "Quickly get up." "Yes." Zhu Xie didn't dare to disobey. She hurriedly got up, but when she got up she saw that Nuo Yecheng was still kneeling there. She thought for a moment, then walked to Nuo Yecheng's side and continued to kneel. Her small figure looked quite interesting next to Nuo Yecheng's figure. Xiaohua was surprised and asked casually, why are you kneeling again?" "Master, my mother always said that a drop of water should be repaid with a gushing spring. This brother spoke up for Xie and Xie has nothing to repay. I can only kneel here with him." Zhu Xie blinked her big bright eyes and answered carefully. This obedient child, if I didn't personally jump you out, I would have thought that you were colluding with Nuo Yecheng to act out a double act in front of this old man." Xiaohua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He waved his hand and said, "All of you get up." "Yes, thank you, senior." Nuo Yecheng was overjoyed. She hurriedly pulled Zhu Xie up from the ground. Seeing Nuo Yecheng stand up, Xiaohua stretched out his hand and said, "Nuo Yecheng, give me your cultivation technique." Nuo Yecheng was stunned. She looked at Xiaohua at a loss and whispered, "Senior, can't you give me the cultivation technique? This old man's cultivation technique is this old man's. It is naturally different from the cultivation technique that your Chanhe sect cultivates. If this Zhu Xie cultivates this old man's cultivation technique, whose disciple would she be?" Xiaohua smiled and asked. Lu Hanhuan, the head of Chanhe sect, looked at Elder Yu Zhuohong. Surprise appeared in their eyes, while Elder Pang Luxing sneered. Nuo Yecheng naturally didn't dare to agree to Xiaohua's request. She looked at Lu Qingyu for help. Lu Qingyu also couldn't agree, so he could only look at Lu Hanhuan. Pang Luxing opened his mouth and looked at Xiaohua with understanding. "Fellow Taoist Jiang, others come to my Chanhe sect for crystal stones. There are also some bold ones who come to seek some magic tools. However, this is the first time I have seen someone so bold. He actually dares to covet my Chanhe sect's cultivation technique. Could it be that fellow Taoist treated this Pang's previous warning as a passing wind?" Xiaohua yawned and stretched. He said somewhat impatiently, "The night is long, the autumn wind is waning, the sky is like a curtain, the stars and the moon are like a painting. If this old man has free time, why don't I go look at the stars in the night sky? Who has no reason to be long-winded with an ordinary person like you? Forget it. Since we are not fated, there is no need to force it." Xiaohua didn't say anything else. He raised his hand and pointed at the last few children without hesitation as if he was playing with them. Lu Qingyu didn't dare to be negligent. He gave Nuo Yecheng a meaningful glance. The two of them followed Xiaohua like flowing water and carefully recorded on the jade slip. "Elder Yu?" Lu Hanhuan hesitated and asked in a low voice, "What do you think of fellow Taoist Jiang?" Yu Zhuohong looked at Xiaohua's back and didn't speak for a long time. After half a cup of tea, he replied with worry in his eyes, "Sect head, this old man has a complicated feeling. I don't know how to answer, sect head." "Complicated feeling? What does this mean?" Lu Hanhuan felt strange and asked in puzzlement. "It's very simple." Yu Zhuohong smiled bitterly and said, "When this old man saw fellow Taoist Jiang for the first time, I felt that he was trustworthy. This trust is definitely not ordinary trust. It's the kind of trust that I can give him from the bottom of my heart." "How is this possible?" Lu Hanhuan was surprised and then asked curiously, "So, Elder also agrees to give the cultivation method to him?" "Of course not." Yu Zhuohong replied resolutely and decisively, "It's because of this unfounded trust that this old man suspects that he has used some kind of secret technique that we don't know. He has bewitched this old man." "Swat." Lu Hanhuan's face was full of black lines and he whispered, "Why would he bewitch you? Even if he wanted to bewitch, he should have bewitched me, right?" "Oh, I understand. This is your complicated feeling. Your intuition tells you that he can be trusted, but you also feel that you can't trust him so easily, right?" "Yes, sect master." This feeling is too unimaginable, so I feel that we can't simply give the cultivation method to him. Although Yu Zhuohong was a little hesitant, he still answered from his heart. Lu Hanhuan thought for a moment and asked Pang Luxing via voice transmission. Elder Pang, what do you think of this fellow Taoist Jiang? If he's not a liar, then he's a senior. Pang Luxing answered without hesitation. Then, can we give the cultivation method to him? Lu Hanhuan seemed to be unable to decide and asked again. Pang Luxing smiled and sent a voice transmission to Lu Hanhuan. Yes, why not? What? Lu Hanhuan was shocked. He thought that Pang Luxing would definitely object, but he didn't expect Pang Luxing to agree without hesitation. Pang Luxing explained, Sect Master, my Chanhe sect is a small sect. Even if the cultivation method that the sect master cultivates, it doesn't seem to be a particularly good cultivation method in Fengyan country, right? If this fellow Taoist Jiang is a liar, why doesn't he go to other sects? Aren't other sects more profitable than my Chanhe sect? But if this fellow Taoist Jiang isn't a liar, wouldn't my Chanhe sect have picked up a great bargain? A modified cultivation method that can adapt to the current changes in the spirit chi of heaven and earth. This is a sky-high item in the auction. I'm afraid that even if my Chanhe sect uses all its wealth, we won't be able to buy one. So, you've been testing fellow Taoist Jiang? Lu Hanhuan came to a realization and smiled. There's no other way. Pang Luxing shrugged and said helplessly, now all the seniors of the Tao sect are in seclusion to avoid the effects of the changes in the spirit chi of heaven and earth. I'm sure the sect master has already sensed it, right? Now that we're using our dermic powers, our lifespan is also decreasing. Although the loss is very small, it's still a lifespan. Who would dare to casually take action when it's a matter of life and death? We nascent soul cultivators are already like this. Wouldn't it be even more obvious for the seniors? Now, which senior would stroll around the Yilin continent for no reason? So, it's not that I don't believe this fellow Taoist Jiang, but I don't dare to believe it. See? Lu Hanhuan was shocked and said in a low voice, Elder Pang, could it be that you've also sensed the changes in lifespan? Pang Luxing did not answer Lu Hanhuan's question. Instead, he looked at Xiaohua's back and said in a low voice, if the sect master has a wind attribute cultivation technique, there's no harm in giving it to fellow Taoist Jiang. Consider it as a test. Hearing this, Lu Hanhuan suddenly came to a realization. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Chanhe sect was a small sect. If it was the 5 elements cultivation technique, they didn't lack it. However, a wind attribute cultivation technique was a rare cultivation technique. Chanhe sect really didn't have it. What could he use to make them change it? However, Lu Hanhuan couldn't say this out loud and embarrass himself. He only nodded slightly. Seeing that Xiaohua had already picked out the children with spirit roots, he secretly calculated in his heart, reporting to the sect master. At this moment, Gao Cheng, who had gone out to pass the order, entered the Yulan hall. He bowed and said, this subordinate has already passed the order. Those children have already fallen asleep. This subordinate has thought about it again and again. There's nothing to think about. Lu Hanhuan waved his hand and said, you must let the children rest well. Everything can wait until tomorrow. Oh yes, this subordinate also thinks so. Gao Cheng was a little surprised. These words didn't sound like the words of the sect master he was familiar with. He was prepared to be scolded by the sect master, who knew that Lu Hanhuan's thoughts were actually so similar to his. Fellow Taoist Jiang. Seeing that Xiaohua had picked out the last qualified disciple, Lu Hanhuan hurriedly stepped forward and cupped his hands. It's been hard on you tonight. This subordinate has already prepared some spirit wine and spirit fruits for the disciples. Fellow Taoist, please come to the Clear Heart Hall. Just as Xiaohua was about to wave his hand and say something, Yu Hua, who was not far away, walked over. She didn't say anything. She only handed over a small package with a slightly red face. The folded part of the package revealed a corner of a navy blue robe. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a month, vote for a recommendation, collect, reward, and thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 48-58. Xiaohua smiled. After receiving the package, he raised his hand and said, Sect Master, please. Fellow Taoist Jiang, this way please. Lu Hanhuan was overjoyed and hurriedly cupped his hands in greeting. You all come over too. Xiaohua looked around and smiled at Nua Yeqing and the others. Lu Hanhuan hurriedly said, Yes, Hong Feng, you all come over too. This flag, this old man still wants to listen carefully. After Xiaohua and the others left, the disciples of Yulan Palace also gradually dispersed. The children picked out by Xiaohua were also carefully taken away by the disciples. Among the many children, Zhu Xier's eyes were as bright as stars as she stared at Xiaohua's back, full of gratitude. Although she was still young, she also understood that from now on, her fate had changed, and the driving force behind this change was this very amiable-looking person who made her feel that the world was full of hope. Big brother. Xiaohua and the others walked out of Yulan Palace. Lu Hanhuan took a few steps ahead of Xiaohua and stood in the air, saying, "Fellow Taoist Jiang, please come with me," and Xiaohua nodded and stepped into the air. But when he took that step, Lu Hanhuan was once again shocked. Because although Xiaohua was flying, there was no fluctuation of magic power around his body, and there was no change in the surrounding spiritual energy. Seeing Xiaohua walk to his side in a few steps, Lu Hanhuan didn't have time to think too much. He nodded slightly and didn't dare to move too much. He just accompanied Xiaohua as they flew towards Clear Heart Palace. The Bright Heart Palace was the largest palace on the mountain peak, and was several times larger than the Yulan Palace. Inside, the decorations were similarly gorgeous. What was special was that there were already quite a few female cultivators standing by the palace door, and all of them looked as beautiful as flowers. As soon as Xiaohua entered, these female cultivators all looked at him curiously. Obviously, the matter of Yulan Palace had already reached their ears. At this time, Xiaohua had already put on the clothes that Zhang Xiaohua brought over. The navy blue clothes were very fitting. Although Zhang Xiaohua's appearance was very ordinary, with this clothes, her ordinary appearance was enhanced by 30%. Of course, it was needless to say that Xiaohua's appearance had been borrowed from the secret technique of the Green Hill sect. When the female cultivators saw Xiaohua, their reactions were similar to Yuehua and Yu Zhuohong's, but they felt that there was an indescribable intimacy and trust in Xiaohua. They could not help but feel shy and surprised. Everyone sat down according to the host's and guest's position. These female cultivators began to serve spirit fruits and spirit wine. However, those who walked past Xiaohua also stole glances at him, as if his face really did have Xiaohua's face. Fellow Taoist Jiang. After the wine was prepared, Lu Hanhuan raised his cup and smiled. "Thank you for your help today, fellow Taoist. This spiritual wine is for you on behalf of the newly recruited disciples of the Chanhe sect. If not for your wisdom, these disciples would have been covered in dust. I will drink first as a sign of respect, please." After saying that, without waiting for Xiaohua to speak, Lu Hanhuan raised his cup and drank it in one gulp. Fellow Taoist Jiang. Yu Zhuohong and the others also raised their cups and smiled. "We will accompany you." Xiaohua did not like spirit wine, but seeing everyone raise their cups, he did not want to dampen their spirits. He raised his cup and said, "Everyone is too polite, please." Seeing Xiaohua drink the spirit wine, Lu Hanhuan was even happier. He raised his hand and pointed at a reddish-yellow spirit fruit the size of a thumb in front of him. "Fellow Taoist Jiang, this is a specialty of my Fengyan country called the heart-burning fruit. Not only does this thing taste excellent, but it is also good for refining meridians. Fellow Taoist might as well try it." Okay. Xiaohua picked up a heart-burning fruit and placed it in his mouth. When he bit into the fruit, he didn't feel anything special in his mouth, but a kind of fragrance unexpectedly emerged from the bottom of his heart, and all his worries seemed to have been burned away. "Wonderful." Xiaohua praised. "This thing is really good. In that case, fellow Taoist, please eat more." Lu Hanhuan smiled and motioned for a disciple to fill his and Xiaohua's wine cups. "He sect Master Lu." Xiaohua took the heart-burning fruit and smiled as he tasted it. "I like to eat spirit fruits, but I am not good at drinking. A cup of spirit wine is already a bit dizzy, it is better to eat more spirit fruits." "Fine." Lu Hanhuan did not dare to force it. He withdrew his hand that was already on the wine cup and also picked up a heart-burning fruit. He smiled and said, "Then I toast fellow Taoist with a spirit fruit." Ha! When Lu Hanhuan said this, the entire Clear Heart Palace was filled with laughter. Pang Luxing and the others immediately laughed and said, "We will accompany fellow Taoist with a spirit fruit." After everyone had eaten a spirit fruit, Lu Hanhuan took out the banner and looked at Lu Qingyu. "Qingyu, Palace Master Xia has already reported this matter. This old man still wants to listen carefully." "Yes, Sect Master." Lu Qingyu did not dare to delay. He hurriedly stood up and explained the matter. Lu Hanhuan and the three elders only knew that Lu Qingyu had obtained the Heavenly Cycle Demon Subduing Star Formation's array flag of the fallen immortal sect and the whereabouts of spiritual master Huang Qiong. However, they were not particularly clear about how he had obtained the array flag. Now that he heard that the array flag was actually given to them by Xiaohua, Lu Hanhuan's eyes were filled with shock. Lu Hanhuan looked at the three elders and exchanged glances with each other. Then he said respectfully, "Fellow Taoist Jiang, I would like to confirm if this heavenly cycle demon subduing star formation, was it you who broke it? Is there spiritual master Huang Qiong's remains in the formation?" Fellow Taoist Lu, you are thinking too much," Xiaohua said with a smile. This heavenly cycle demon subduing star formation was used by spiritual master Huang Qiong to transcend the tribulation. It must have gone through a lightning tribulation. I just happened to break the formation by chance. As for whether there is spiritual master Huang Qiong's remains in the formation, I have never seen it before. Of course I am not sure. It's like this, fellow Taoist Jiang? Lu Hanhuan said with a smile. I think you know that the heavenly cycle demon subduing star formation is a secret formation of the fallen immortal sect. The fallen immortal sect is the largest cultivation sect in the Fengyan kingdom. The strength of the Chanhe sect is no match for the fallen immortal sect. Therefore, when we obtained the array flag, we had no other choice but to return it to the fallen immortal sect immediately and inform them that spiritual master Huang Qiong was transcending the tribulation in the Xia mountain range. However, I was afraid that I would cause trouble for you, so I asked for your opinion before returning it to the fallen immortal sect. Xiaohua waved his hand and said, I have already given the array flag to Yuehua. You can do whatever you want with it. As for I, try not to mention it if you don't want to. If you really can't avoid it, just say it. It's okay. Okay, then I am relieved. Lu Hanhuan was overjoyed. He raised his cup and said, Let me propose another toast to you. Thank you for trusting my Chanhe sect. Okay. Xiaohua had no choice but to raise his cup again. After finishing the second cup, Lu Hanhuan turned his head and said to Gao Cheng, Elder Gao, the matter of returning the array flag to the fallen celestial sect is very important to the Chanhe sect. I don't trust anyone else, so I have to trouble you to make the trip. I hope you can make it back in time before the deadline. Gao Cheng was not surprised by Lu Hanhuan's arrangement. He took the array flag and bowed. Sect leader, don't worry. I will definitely return the array flag to the fallen immortal sect and bring the disciples of the fallen immortal sect to the Xingyun Ridge. Okay, then I propose a toast to Elder Gao. Lu Hanhuan said and raised his cup again. Gao Cheng hurriedly took the cup and finished it. Then he cupped his fists at Lu Hanhuan and left the Ming Xian Palace. After Gao Cheng left, the atmosphere in the Ming Xian Palace was a little gloomy. Yu Zhuohong looked at Yuehua and asked knowingly, Yuehua, the array flag of the heavenly cycle demon subduing star array, was it you who found it, or Zhang? Yuehua hurriedly stood up and said respectfully, Elder Yu, I have only heard of the heavenly cycle demon subduing star array, but I have never seen it before. How could I recognize it? Not only did Senior Zhang obtain this banner, but he was also the one who broke the banner. Then, I noticed the strangeness of this banner and thought of the fallen immortal sect's heavenly cycle demon subduing star formation. Really? Surprise appeared on Yu Zhuohong's face. He looked toward Xiaohua and said, Fellow Taoist Zhang, the fallen immortal sect's heavenly cycle devil subduing star array has always been their secret that they don't pass on. Even my sect master. I'm afraid he wouldn't be able to see through it for the time being. Could it be that fellow Taoist has seen this array somewhere before? Seeing that Yu Zhuohong was probing again, Xiaohua was a little speechless. He thought for a moment, looked at the anticipation in Lu Hanhuan's eyes and said with a smile, To be honest, I don't know what the heavenly cycle demon subduing star array is. Hearing Xiaohua's denial, Lu Hanhuan's eyes were clearly disappointed. However, he only opened his mouth and did not force Xiaohua to say anything. Instead, he forced a smile and raised his cup, saying, It's okay. I am already very grateful that Zhang is magnanimous enough to give the array flag of the heavenly cycle demon subduing star array to my Chan sect. Please? At this moment, Peng Luxing was clearly sending a voice transmission anxiously as if urging something. Xiaohua smiled and picked up his wine cup again. Although he hadn't fully recovered his divine powers and couldn't use clairvoyance, because he had formed a body of laws, some of his divine powers were innately powerful. Therefore he did not listen to anything. Pang Liuxing's voice transmission had already entered his ears intermittently. Although Pang Liuxing's words were not very clear, they were nothing more than asking for orders to force Xiaohua to take out the heavenly cycle demon subduing star array. However, Lu Hanhuan did not agree and only raised his cup to signal Xiaohua to drink. Xiaohua looked at Lu Hanhuan thoughtfully, raised his cup and said with a smile, Sect Master Lu, please? Please? Lu Hanhuan felt bitter in his mouth and poured the spirit wine into his mouth. Before he could put the cup down, Xiaohua said, I don't know what the heavenly cycle demon subduing star array is, but I am proficient in a kind of capital star array. It looks similar to the heavenly cycle demon subduing star array. Lu Hanhuan immediately spat out the spirit wine in his mouth. Of course, before the spirit wine landed on the jade table in front of him, Lu Hanhuan immediately waved his hand and a layer of green flames flashed, burning the spirit wine. Then Lu Hanhuan's face turned slightly red and he smiled apologetically. Fellow Taoist Jiang, you must be joking. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support it, vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, collect it and reward it. Thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 48-59. It's okay, it's okay. Xiaohua waved his hand and looked at Lu Hanhuan meaningfully. I think you've always wanted to ask about the heavenly cycle demon subduing star array, right? But why did you stop at this time? If it were another sect leader, I'm afraid he would have asked directly before the toast, right? This? Lu Hanhuan hesitated for a moment and smiled bitterly. It's not that I don't want to ask, but I think the heavenly cycle demon subduing star array is extraordinary. Even if my Chanhe sect uses all our resources, we can't make a deal with you. And you've helped my Chanhe sect before, so I don't want to force you too much. If you're willing to help, you'll naturally agree. If you're not willing to help, then just pretend I didn't say anything. Haha. Xiaohua laughed, raised his wine cup and said, Come, sect leader Lu, I toast you, a very incompetent sect leader. Ah, fellow Zhang, please. Lu Hanhuan's embarrassment disappeared, and he raised his wine cup and drank it. Xiaohua put down his wine cup and looked down at his Taoist robe. He smiled and said, In this poor Taoist's eyes, the capital star formation isn't worth as much as this Taoist robe. Since Fairy Moonlight gave this Taoist robe to this poor Taoist, how could this poor Taoist not return the favor and give the capital star formation to this poor Taoist? Really? When Lu Hanhuan heard this, he couldn't help but lose his composure and blurted out. Moonlight, who was not far away, blushed and lowered her head. Ugh. Xiaohua saw that the situation was a little awkward and knew that what he said was inappropriate. He hurriedly said with a smile, Of course. Didn't Zhu Shi'er just say that? The kindness of receiving a drop of water from others should be repaid with a gushing spring. Since the Moonlight Fairy can give me clothes to cover myself, how can I not repay her? It's just that. What does fellow Zhang want? Please say it. As long as my Chanhe sect has it, we can satisfy it. Lu Hanhuan's breathing was a little rapid, and he asked urgently. I just want to take a look at some of your sect's ancient records. Oh, sect leader Lu, don't worry. It's not the ancient records of your sect's techniques, but the ancient records of the Yilin continent. Xiaohua understood Lu Hanhuan's feelings very well, and decided to speak his mind. However, Lu Hanhuan really couldn't believe his ears. He asked in surprise, Fellow Taoist Zhang, is that all you want? That's right, that's the only request. Sect leader Lu doesn't agree? Xiaohua asked with a smile. How could I not agree? Lu Hanhuan agreed without hesitation. However, I feel that this is too unfair for you, fellow Taoist. Sect leader? Yu Hua, who was not far away, was still blushing. She hurriedly got up and said, That day Senior Zhang mentioned the Defeat Oak Immortal Alliance and the Wuming Mountain Range. I don't know where the Defeat Oak Immortal Alliance is, but I have seen the Wuming Mountain Range in the ancient books of the sect, so I told Senior Zhang about it. I guess Senior Zhang has something to do in the Wuming Mountain Range. The Moonlight Fairy is right. Xiaohua nodded. I do have something to do in the Wuming Mountain Range, so I want to borrow the ancient books of the Chanhe sect. The Wuming Mountain Range. Lu Hanhuan was a little surprised. He looked at Xiaohua in confusion and asked curiously, Fellow Taoist, why are you going there? That place is really far from my Fengyan kingdom. Even I only know the name. As for the Defeat Oak Immortal Alliance, to tell you the truth, I have never even heard of it. I only know that the Fallen Immortal sect belongs to the Tsiupu Immortal Alliance, and the Fengyan kingdom is also within the sphere of influence of the Tsiupu Immortal Alliance. My Chanhe sect is not qualified to enter the Tsiupu Immortal Alliance, so I don't have more information about the Immortal Alliance. Even if you read all the ancient books of my Chanhe sect, I'm afraid you won't get anything useful. Seeing that Lu Hanhuan was so honest and refused to take advantage of him, Xiaohua was even more willing to fulfill his wish. He smiled and said, The Chanhe sect may not have this information. Sect leader Lu can go elsewhere to look for it. At this point, if Lu Hanhuan still didn't understand, he was really stupid. He cupped his hands and said, Thank you, fellow Taoist Zhang. I'll order my disciples to go to the nearby auction to find the information you want. After that, Lu Hanhuan turned to Yu Zhuohong and said, Elder Yu, I'll leave it to you. Yes, I'll do as you say. Yu Zhuohong stood up and said, I'll arrange the disciples. Sect leader Lu, don't worry. Xiao Hua quickly raised his hand and said. Lu Hanhuan smiled and said, Fellow Taoist Jiang, is there anything else? Sect leader Lu just said that the Chanhe sect is a small sect. I'm afraid there aren't many crystals in this sect. Moreover, these crystal stones also need to support the cultivation of the disciples. How can this poor Taoist have the nerve to compete with them for crystal stones? Xiao Hua said, and then said to Nua Yeching, give this old man a few jade slips. Fellow Taoist Jiang, you're too polite. Lu Hanhuan hurriedly stood up and said, Fellow Taoist, what you want to give my Chanhe sect is a priceless treasure. It's nothing for my Chanhe sect to take out some crystals. Xiao Hua smiled and didn't say anything. However, Nua Yeching didn't come over. Instead, she was holding a spirit fruit in her hand and seemed to be in a daze. She was far from being as clever as before. Xiao Hua frowned slightly and said, Nua Yeching? Nua Yeching woke up and hurriedly put down the spirit fruit. She stood up and said, Senior Zhang, give me a few blank jade slips. Xiao Hua ordered. Nua Yeching didn't dare to ask more. She took out a few jade slips and handed them to Xiao Hua respectfully. Xiao Hua took them and used his divine sense to explore them. After a while, he handed the jade slips to Nua Yeching and said, Give these cultivation methods for selecting disciples to Elder Yu. Yes. Nua Yeching nodded. However, just as she took the jade slips, she was shocked again. Her hands trembled a little and she said anxiously, Senior, is this the secret method that you use to find the spiritual roots? That's right. Xiao Hua nodded and then said to Yu Zhuohong, Now that the spiritual energy in the Yilin continent has changed, the previous method of selecting disciples has lost its effectiveness. All the sects are now worried about recruiting disciples. If this secret method is put up for auction, it will definitely be able to fetch a good price. Elder Yu, you can use these crystals to bid for some information about the Wumeng Mountain Range and the Defeat You Immortal Alliance. If there is any other information that Elder Yu thinks is useful, you can also bid for it. Yu Zhuohong was a little stunned. She said in disbelief, Fellow Taoist Jiang, it's just some information. Fellow Taoist actually took out such a precious secret method. Xiao Hua knew what Yu Zhuohong was thinking. He smiled and stopped Yu Zhuohong's words, saying, In I's eyes, information is much more precious than this secret method. Furthermore, our Tao sect's development in the Yilin continent has reached a bottleneck. This secret method is the only way to solve this bottleneck. I feel that it is necessary and also my responsibility to announce the secret method. Hiss. Even Lu Hanhuan sucked in a breath of cold air and said in shock, Fellow Taoist Jiang, you mean, this secret method can be copied and sold in large quantities? Instead of just bidding for one set? Of course. Xiao Hua said with a smile, If only one copy is sold, do you think Elder Yuan has the ability to escape from the control of other sects? Then my Chanhe sect can also keep a copy? Although Lu Hanhuan already knew in his heart, he couldn't help but confirm again. Of course. Why not? Xiao Hua asked back. Many thanks, fellow Taoist Jiang. Lu Hanhuan smiled and raised his wine cup, saying, Fellow Taoist, please drink this cup to express my Chanhe sect's gratitude. You can't drink any more. Xiao Hua waved his hand and said, I don't like drinking wine. Just now, I drank a few cups and already drank too much. I appreciate sect leader Lu's feelings. Okay. Lu Hanhuan didn't dare to force it. As he spoke, he drank the spirit wine in one gulp and sighed, I haven't seen a cultivator as magnanimous as fellow Taoist for a long time. If it was someone else, I'm afraid they would treat this secret method as a treasure and wouldn't let it go without a high price. It's not necessary. Xiao Hua twisted a spirit fruit and said, As long as the secret method of selecting disciples exists, it will definitely be leaked. Not to mention your Chanhe sect, even the fallen celestial sect will come after hearing the news. Instead of facing such a strong enemy, it's better to put this secret method in the auction and get some benefits. Yes, I understand. Yu Zhuohong nodded. I will personally copy some secret methods and bring my capable disciples to the auction in the Xiahong Mountain. Elder Yu, I'll have to trouble you. Lu Hanhuan saw that Yu Zhuohong was also going out and couldn't help but hesitate. However, he thought that if the secret method of selecting disciples appeared in the auction, it would definitely cause a sensation. Among the remaining disciples of the Chanhe sect, only Elder Yu had the ability to retreat calmly. Therefore he could only ask Elder Yu for help. When Yu Zhuohong left, Lu Hanhuan habitually raised his cup again. However, he swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. Xiaohua had already said that he wouldn't drink anymore, so he naturally couldn't persuade him to drink anymore. Moreover, Xiaohua only wanted information about the Wuming mountain range. Xiaohua had already given the secret method of selecting disciples to the Chanhe sect. If he asked him to ask for the Du Tian star formation again, he felt a little guilty. Xiaohua looked at this thin-skinned sect leader and smiled in his heart. He knew that this was a cultivator like him who was not suitable to be a sect leader. Therefore he didn't make things difficult for Lu Hanhuan and said, "Sect leader Lu, as for the heavenly cycle demon subduing star formation just now, I think it's better for your sect not to have it." Lu Hanhuan felt bitter in his mouth and smiled apologetically. "Yes, I know that my Chanhe sect really can't afford to pay more for the heavenly cycle demon subduing star formation." "No," Xiaohua said with a smile, "Sect leader Lu misunderstood me. I think that another formation is more suitable for your sect." Ah! Lu Hanhuan was really overjoyed. He shouted, "Fellow Zhang, could it be that there's another formation similar to the heavenly cycle demon subduing star formation?" Of course, after Lu Hanhuan finished speaking, he regretted it and hurriedly changed his words. "Ah, fellow Zhang, I'm a little greedy. There's no need for a formation similar to the heavenly cycle demon subduing star formation. A formation similar to it is enough. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian. Vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, give it as a reward, and thank you for all forms of support." Chapter 4860. Xiaohua waved his hand and said, "Sect leader Lu, don't be anxious. Listen to me slowly." Yes, I'm not in a hurry. Have a taste of the spirit fruit first." Lu Hanhuan was so happy that he didn't know what to do. He picked up the spirit fruit from the jade table and said carefully. Xiaohua nodded slightly and ate a few spirit fruits. He said, "I don't know if the fallen immortal sect's heavenly cycle demon subduing star formation is complete, but since it's the heavenly cycle demon subduing star formation of the fallen immortal sect, it doesn't matter if their formation is complete or not. It's not suitable for your sect to control the heavenly cycle demon subduing star formation, unless your sect doesn't want to have a foothold in the Fengyan kingdom." Yes. Lu Hanhuan took a deep breath and came to a realization. The Chanhe sect didn't dare to keep the formation flags used by the Royal Dome's spiritual master. They didn't even dare to enter the incomplete formation. How could they dare to have the same heavenly cycle demon subduing star formation as the fallen immortal sect? If this news was leaked out, not only would the fallen immortal sect not allow the Chanhe sect to exist in this world, their enemies would also extend their evil hands to the Chanhe sect. Lu Hanhuan stood up and bowed. "Thank you for your reminder. I was too happy to see the formation and didn't think of so many advantages and disadvantages." "Don't mention it." Xiaohua waved his hand. "We're both cultivators and humans. It's inevitable that we'll think of something." Then Xiaohua looked at Nuo Yeqing and said, "Give me another blank jade slip." "Yes, senior." When Nuo Yeqing saw Xiaohua repeatedly asking for jade slips from him, he knew that this was attracting the attention of the sect head. He felt grateful in his heart, and hurriedly took out a blank jade slip and respectfully handed it over. Lu Hanhuan didn't expect Xiaohua to do it immediately. He hurriedly waved his hand and said, "Brother Zhang, there's no need to rush. It's okay?" Xiaohua took the jade slip and used his spiritual sense to check it. He said, "It's just a formation. It'll be done soon." Lu Hanhuan's expression changed slightly. He thought to himself, "It's just a formation? How can the fallen immortal sect's formation be set up so easily? Could it be that this fellow is a senior?" As he thought of this, he could not help but look at Pang Luosheng. Pang Luosheng's expression was also uncertain. Sure enough, in less than half a cup of tea's time, Xiaohua had already engraved the formation into the jade slip. However, he didn't pass it to Lu Hanhuan. Instead, he tossed it to Yu Hua and said, "Yu Shenzi, thank you Hongfeng, Zhangji and Lu Qingyu. This is something I promised all of you before. I hope it can help your Chan sect." Yu Hua quickly got up and took the jade slip. She was happy but also a bit disappointed. She respectfully bowed and said, "Junior thanks senior for the gift." After Yu Hua handed the jade slip to Lu Hanhuan, Xiaohua explained, "Inside the jade slip is the array formation method of the Pleiades devil-devouring immortal formation. Since sect leader Lu only has the strength of a nascent soul realm cultivator, I only left a simple version for the Chanhe sect. Sect leader Lu and the 3 elders only need to refine 108 array flags and 1 array disc to set up the array. Furthermore, in I's opinion, if sect leader Lu and the 3 elders can set up this array, your realms will definitely improve even further. Lu Hanhuan had originally used his divine perception to check the jade slip. The exquisiteness of the formation had already shocked him greatly. Now that he heard Xiaohua's explanation, how could he not know that he had met a senior? He didn't have time to look at the jade slip anymore. He hurriedly bowed again and said, "Junior greets Senior Zhang. Earlier I was really rude." There's no need for that." Xiaohua calmly waved his hand and said, "I didn't reveal my identity, so I can't blame you. Furthermore, I have some fate with these disciples of your Chanhe sect, so I don't mind these customs." Senior. Although Pang Luxing didn't see the formation in the jade slip, he believed in Lu Hanhuan's judgment. Since Lu Hanhuan thought that Xiaohua was a senior, he didn't dare to be negligent. He hurriedly got up and bowed. "Forgive me for being blind. I really didn't expect that, in this era where high-level cultivators are all living in seclusion, there would still be a senior walking around the Yilin continent." Xiaohua asked curiously, "What do you mean? Why would high-level cultivators live in seclusion?" Lu Hanhuan and Pang Luxing were taken aback by Xiaohua's words. Then, the two of them looked at each other in disbelief before falling to their knees at almost the same time and crying out, "Seniors, save us! Senior Zhang." Seeing their sect master fall to his knees, Xia Feng, Yun Songyu and Hong Feng hurriedly knelt down and said, "Please save our Chanhe sect." Xiaohua had already learned something from Lu Qingyu and the others. Seeing them all kneel down, he smiled bitterly in his heart. He was a grand ascension stage human cultivator, but the problem was, he hadn't recovered his strength yet. Who knew what kind of danger the Chanhe sect was in? He couldn't just casually answer in a situation where he couldn't ascertain the situation. Strangely, before Xiaohua had a chance to speak, Lu Hanhuan turned and said, "Xia Feng, you and the other disciples are to leave the Bright Heart Palace. Without my permission you're not to enter at will." "Yes, we understand," Xia Feng answered and left with the other disciples. However, they all had a faint smile on their faces because they already knew that Xiaohua was a warm-hearted senior. He would definitely not abandon the Chanhe sect. Xiaohua didn't disappoint Yu Hua and the others. After the disciples left, he asked, "Sect Master Lu, what kind of danger has your Chanhe sect encountered?" Unexpectedly, Lu Hanhuan smiled and said, "Senior Zhang, our Chanhe sect has indeed encountered a crisis. However, now that we have the formation flag that you gave to Nua Yeqing, I have sent Elder Gao to the fallen immortal sect. I believe that with the mediation of the fallen immortal sect's disciples, this crisis is not a crisis. This junior doesn't dare to trouble Senior Zhang with this matter." "Oh, so that's your plan?" Xiaohua nodded and said, "Then I understand. I wonder if the two of you... Oh, did you encounter any problems in your cultivation?" "That's not right, the two of you are still quite a distance away from the bottleneck of the peak nascent soul stage," Xiaohua said casually, but every word he said made Lu Hanhuan and Pang Liuxing's hearts skip a beat. It was as if their cultivation realms were nothing in front of this seemingly ordinary cultivator. "Senior, it's like this." After Xiaohua finished asking, Lu Hanhuan respectfully explained the matter. Pang Luxing also smiled and said, "Senior, since we late nascent soul stage cultivators can feel the passage of our lifespan, then the spirit severing stage, void refinement stage and unity stage seniors must have sensed it long ago. This is also the fundamental reason why there haven't been many high-level seniors in our Fengyan country recently. So this junior misunderstood senior?" "Yes." Lu Hanhuan quickly said, "Since senior didn't sense the passage of your lifespan, there must be some secret technique. This junior earnestly requests senior." Speaking up to here, Lu Hanhuan was unable to continue speaking, and even he himself felt slightly embarrassed. After all, he and Xiaohua were neither relatives nor friends, and they had no relationship at all. How could Xiaohua possibly casually pass down such a precious secret technique to him? Unexpectedly, Xiaohua frowned and said without any hesitation, "Sect Master Lu, it's not that this old man is selfish and doesn't want to pass on the secret technique to the two of you. It's because this old man has just come out of seclusion." "This old man." "Before I went into seclusion, the changes in the spiritual chi of heaven and earth were not obvious, and this old man has not encountered the passage of my lifespan. Therefore this old man has no secret technique to pass on to the two of you. Perhaps in a few days, this old man will also inform you of the passage of my lifespan." "Oh, so that's how it is." Lu Hanhuan and Pang Luxing suddenly understood. They did not suspect him because Xiao Hua's explanation of coming out of seclusion just so happened to confirm the matter of him crashing into the heavenly cycle demon subduing star array. As for breaking through the realm and entering, it was not something the two of them could understand with their cultivation levels, so they could not possibly think in that direction. Seeing that the two of them were a little disappointed, Xiao Hua said with a smile, "Don't be anxious. This old man will take a look at the situation first. If there is also a limit to the passage of my lifespan, this old man will think of a way. If I have any insights, not only will I tell you, but I will also tell others." Senior is really merciful. Pang Luxing couldn't help but sigh with emotion. Lu Hanhuan, on the other hand, was ecstatic. "In that case, Senior is going to stay in my Nebula Ridge for a period of time?" "Hee, of course." Xiaohua smiled. "This old man has put in a lot of effort in your Chanhe sect. How can I succeed if I don't gain anything?" Yes, this junior understands." Lu Hanhuan hurriedly replied, "This junior will arrange for my disciple." "No, Senior, please take a look at my Nebula Ridge first. This junior will immediately arrange a quiet room for you. There's no need to trouble yourself." Xiao Hua waved his hand and said, "This old man wants to take a look at the ancient books of your sect now. I wonder if it's convenient for you." Lu Hanhuan only hesitated for a moment, secretly wondering if he should tidy up the Lapse Palace where the ancient books of the sect were stored. However, he then smiled bitterly again. Among the cultivation methods of the Chanhe sect, the highest cultivation method could only be cultivated to the spirit-severing stage. Even if he was lucky enough to break through to the spirit-severing stage, he would still have to go to the auction house to buy void refinement realm cultivation methods in the future. It could be said that all the ancient books in the Lapse Palace might not be as valuable as the Pleiades Sun Devil devouring immortal formation that Xiao Hua had previously given to the Chanhe sect, not to mention that Xiao Hua had also given the Chanhe sect a method to select disciples' spiritual roots. Why should I hide it in front of Xiao Hua? Hence, Lu Hanhuan smiled and said, "Since Senior is so anxious, this junior will accompany you to the Lapse Palace. The Lapse Palace stores the ancient books that my Chanhe sect has collected since the establishment of the sect, including cultivation methods, refining methods, the Tao of pill refinement, and so on. Then this old man will wait first." Xiao Hua immediately replied, "We'll talk about it after sect leader Lu tidies up." No need. Lu Hanhuan replied without hesitation. "Now, my Chanhe sect no longer hides anything from Senior. Senior, please go ahead. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a monthly vote, vote for a recommendation vote, bookmark, reward, and thank you for all forms of support." Chapter 4861. Good. Xiao Hua liked Lu Hanhuan's straightforwardness and said with a smile, "When the other disciples come tomorrow, I will help you select disciples first. Then, I will find some time to see if there are any changes in the spiritual qi of heaven and earth and give you some cultivation methods." Thank you, Senior Zhang." Lu Hanhuan was so happy that he couldn't close his mouth and begged in a low voice, "If possible, can you give me some void refinement cultivation methods?" Of course. Xiao Hua didn't refuse at all. Not to mention void refinement cultivation methods, even body fusion cultivation methods were just firewood in the eyes of the great sages of the human race. If it wasn't for the fact that Xiao Hua couldn't enter the space and the spiritual qi of heaven and earth didn't change, Xiao Hua could take out a few cultivation methods and give them to Lu Hanhuan now. Why wait until tomorrow? "Senior, please." With Xiao Hua's promise, although Lu Hanhuan didn't use his magic power, his figure was about to fly away. The Hall of Time was a very different hall from the Clear Heart Hall and the Jade Orchid Hall. Strange runes were engraved on the door of the hall like floating clouds. On the stone wall, there was a picture that looked like a rainbow that crossed the sun hanging on the roof of the Hall of Time. As soon as he stepped into the Hall of Time, Xiao Hua couldn't help but feel that time was passing by. He withdrew his gaze from the runes around him and stared at the roof of the hall with a frown for about half a cup of tea's time. "Senior?" Only Lu Hanhuan accompanied Xiao Hua. Seeing Xiao Hua frown, he was a little puzzled and asked in a low voice, "Is there something wrong with this mural? This rainbow crossing the sun painting? Which fellow Taoist of your sect left it behind?" Xiao Hua suddenly asked. Lu Hanhuan looked at the familiar mural and shook his head. "Since I joined the Chanhe sect, this mural has been here. As for which senior left it behind, I don't know." "What? Is there something wrong with this mural?" Xiao Hua nodded and said, "Yes, this is a very powerful Tao formation. However, activating the formation requires a formation tool. Since sect leader Lu doesn't know the origin of the mural, the formation tool must have been lost. No way. Lu Hanhuan was a little dumbfounded because he never thought that this mere mural was actually a powerful magic array. Then Lu Hanhuan asked anxiously, then, Senior, do you know what the sun-crossing rainbow array looks like? Xiaohua shrugged, with an appearance of wanting to help but unable to do so, he replied. Sect Master Lu, I'm not by Shaoxing, I only know that this is a formation diagram. As for what the formation treasure is used to activate the formation diagram, I'm afraid only your sect's disciples would know, right? Yes, yes. Lu Hanhuan nodded with a smile and led Xiaohua to the side of the hall. On one side of the elapsing palace, there were many sun crowns of various sizes. The faint sunlight from the rainbow painting shone on these sun crowns like pillars. What was extremely strange was that although the source of the sunlight was the same, the position of the needle on the corona was different. Furthermore, when Xiaohua's divine sense swept over the place, he could clearly see that there were a total of 365 corona in the elapsing palace. The position of the crown needle on each corona was different, and it just so happened to cover a complete crown. Moreover, at every moment the shadow cast by the crown needle of the 365 corona was changing, but the shadow cast by each crown needle was absolutely not overlapping. Senior. As Lu Hanhuan spoke, he raised his right hand and from the jade ring on his left hand, he took out a magic tool that looked like a candle and respectfully handed it over to Xiaohua. This is the magic tool to open the Hall of Time. Senior, please take it first. Xiaohua didn't take the magic tool, but looked at Lu Hanhuan with a smile and didn't say anything. Lu Hanhuan didn't understand at first, but after a moment he suddenly realized something. His eyes flashed with a strange color, and his heart couldn't help but beat wildly in his chest. This, Senior Zhang. So his magic power is gone. A voice screamed in Lu Hanhuan's heart. No wonder. I didn't see him use his magic power, and even when we were going from the Yulan Palace to the Clear Heart Palace, I didn't see him use any escape technique. Lu Hanhuan knew better than anyone what it meant to be a void refinement or unity stage cultivator who had lost all his magic power. In an instant, a dark joy appeared in his heart. That scream was the publicity of the devil in his heart. However, it was only for a moment, and Lu Hanhuan's expression calmed down again. Although he couldn't be considered a decisive sect leader, he was a qualified human cultivator. The ecstasy in his eyes disappeared, and he smiled at Xiaohua. While activating his magic power, he cast a simple spell on the magic tool. Swish. With a light sound, it was as if a candle in the dark night had been lit. A layer of crimson brilliance emerged from the magic tool, and all of a sudden the surrounding darkness was driven away. That crimson light was reflected in Lu Hanhuan's eyes, and similarly, it produced a brilliant brilliance, dispelling the darkness in his eyes. Lu Hanhuan held the lit magic tool and walked in front of a corona. He stared at it for a moment and then carefully waved his hand. The magic tool was thrown on the corona, and it completely overlapped with the flashing needle. Boom! With a slight rumbling sound, the corona trembled and flew in front of Lu Hanhuan. Shwa! The corona needle on the corona split into two and spun in two different directions. Two black and white brilliance rippled on the surface of the corona like water ripples. Bang! When the two water ripples collided, they set off layers of ripples. In these ripples, the corona expanded rapidly, and a magic tool that was very similar to the rainbow on the roof of the palace appeared. The magic tool was divided into 12 layers, and each layer had a different color. Moreover, there were more or less jade slips on each layer. Senior. Lu Hanhuan raised his hand and pointed at the magic tool, explaining, "This long rainbow pavilion stores the ancient books that my Jianghu sect has accumulated for generations. There are no restrictions in the long rainbow pavilion. Senior, please feel free to read them." With that, Lu Hanhuan took out a jade slip from the long rainbow pavilion and handed it to Xiaohua. Then he pointed at a random place in the long rainbow pavilion. Bang! The long rainbow pavilion trembled slightly and quickly shrank. When it returned to the shape of a corona, the candle-like magic tool also fell from it. Lu Hanhuan caught the candle-like magic tool and handed it to Xiaohua respectfully. He turned and left without any hesitation. Looking at Lu Hanhuan's back, Xiaohua smiled. He then looked at the jade slip in his hand and didn't look at it. Instead, he sat down cross-legged and rubbed his chin as he thought to himself, "When I left the demon realm, I was ambushed by the Fire Phoenix King. But man proposes, God disposes. Not only did I not die under the impact of the realm, I even made it to the Yilin continent. Although I don't know if this Yilin continent is the Dao Heaven realm, this is the other side of the Million Meng Mountains. I'm 50% sure. No, it should be 80% sure. Because the spiritual energy change in the Yilin continent is almost exactly the same as the spiritual energy change in the Xiaoyu continent in my memory. As long as I get the news of the Immortal Alliance in the Xiaoyu continent from the Chanhe sect or the auction in the Fengyan kingdom, this matter will be confirmed. If I can confirm that the Yilin continent is a part of the Xiaoyu continent, then I only need to pass through the Wuming mountain range to find the Witch King of the Witch King token and return to the Xiaoyu continent. It has already been nearly 30 years since I left the West Sea of the three continents. Although the process has been tortuous, this Xiao has still followed the previous plan to the last few steps. The time left for this Xiao seems to be quite sufficient. However, I still have a few difficulties. I'm afraid it's not easy to make a decision. Xiao Hua thought and frowned. First, I have no spiritual power. It's even worse than when I was in the 10,000 demon realm. Whether it's the space, the Naiwan Palace, the middle Dantian or the lower Dantian, I can't sense them. Especially, my physical body and many of my avatars are slowly condensing and recovering. I don't know how long this process will take. Second, the impact of the change in the spiritual energy of heaven and earth is too great. It's so great that the entire Dao sect can't bear it. It's really far beyond my expectations. Nascent soul cultivators are going through tribulation. This is a fatal blow to the Yilin continent and the Xiaoyu continent's cultivators. They may not have time to temper their bodies before facing the lightning tribulation. There's an 80 to 90% chance that they will die. For the Fortune Gate's disciples, this is just bad news. It increases the difficulty of their cultivation, but it may not be fatal. But, because of the change in the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, the lifespan of spirit-severing cultivators is inexplicably decreasing. This is not something the Fortune Gate's disciples can deal with. Even if they pass the lightning tribulation and become nascent soul or spirit-severing cultivators, what's the use? Could it be that they are like the high-level cultivators of the Yilin continent, hiding in the heavenly paradise and not daring to come out? If so, Xiong Yi Li Xiang and the others should have stayed in the 10,000 demon realm. They shouldn't have returned to the Xiaoyu continent. When Xiao Hua thought of this, he was suddenly shocked. He almost opened his eyes and whispered, "Not good. If the spiritual energy of heaven and earth changes like this, when I destroy the immortal array, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth will kill all the world-destroying mayflies. Lu Yi and the others. Won't they have to face the same predicament that the high-level cultivators of the Yilin continent are facing now? How can they cultivate to the Mahayana realm? How can they ascend to the immortal world? Moreover, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth is so unfavorable for us Dao sect cultivators. What about the Confucian cultivators? What about the Buddhist disciples? But if I don't lead the spiritual energy of heaven and earth into the three continents, under the attack of the world-destroying mayflies, the billions of lives on the three continents will be exterminated. It's impossible for me not to destroy the immortal array. Xiao Hua immediately felt that he was in a dilemma. What should I do? 10,000 demon realm. Without thinking too much, Xiao Hua naturally thought of the 10,000 demon realm. However, this thought only lasted for a moment before he strangled it again. P.S. The development of the plot has been slow recently, so I've added an update today. Thank you all for your support, and a special thank you to the Wandering Dragon Holiday Alliance leader. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a monthly vote, vote for a recommendation vote, bookmark, gift, and Chapter 4862. Return to the 10,000 demon realm. It's easy to say but difficult to do. Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. Let's not talk about how difficult it is to cross the realm. Even with this Xiao's cultivation, I can't cross between two mature realms, let alone those low-level cultivators. Just the Yilin continent, Xiaoyu continent, and the other three continents. There is no space passage that can be used. Our human race's cultivators can't set foot in the 10,000 demon realm. If the 10,000 demon realm is not possible, then there is only the Xinhua continent. Xiao Hua also thought of his own space. The Fortune Gate's disciples are easy, just let them go in directly. But what about the other disciples? How can they listen to this Xiao? Moreover, although this Xiao has the Kunlun mirror as a cover, the Kunlun immortal realm is after all an illusion, it can't accommodate so many cultivators. Especially, this Xiao's immortal ascension lightning tribulation is imminent, the changes in the Xinhua continent are also imminent, this Xiao doesn't dare to take so many human cultivators with him. What can I do? Xiao Hua was very worried. Indeed, before the first wave had subsided, another wave had arisen. Even when the sky was bright and Lu Hanhuan was waiting outside the passage palace, Xiao Hua still couldn't think of a suitable solution. Forget it. Xiao Hua stood up and made a decision. Even if this Xiao has a space beast void in this space, it is only one space beast. How can it deal with so many strange insects in the 3 continents? Therefore, the immortal array of the 3 continents and the Xiaoyu continent must be broken. Otherwise, the world-exterminating mayflies in the 3 continents will not be able to be completely exterminated. Moreover, under the changes in the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, the immortal array will be corroded sooner or later. The cultivators of the 3 continents will have to face this cruel reality sooner or later. This Xiao will only destroy the immortal array so that they will have to face it one day earlier. This Xiao's magic power has not recovered, and my doppelgangers have not completely condensed. It is useless for this Xiao to think too much. It is better to wait for my doppelgangers to come out, then this Xiao will discuss with them. I'll take advantage of this time to look at the news of the Fengyan kingdom and the records of the Chanhe sect. Who knows, I might be able to find something. Xiao Hua didn't have much time left, but it wasn't short either. Xiao Hua's divine ability was no longer recovering, and it was impossible for him to pass through the millions of Meng mountains. As for the recovery of his fleshly body and divine ability, Xiao Hua didn't have a good solution for now. Therefore, the best solution for him now was to stick to the status quo. As soon as he walked out of the Evanescent Palace, Lu Hanhuan immediately approached him and said respectfully, Junior did not dare to disturb Senior's quiet cultivation, but last night, Junior had sent an order for the children who are waiting to be selected to gather in the Magnolia Palace early in the morning. Junior boldly asks Senior to leave your seclusion and quickly deal with this matter. Well said. Xiao Hua replied, then started walking towards the direction of the Yulan Palace. Lu Hanhuan could clearly see that Xiao Hua wasn't using any magic power. He was just walking in the air. Wherever his feet landed, the void was like flat ground. What kind of divine ability is this? Lu Hanhuan was aghast. Could it be that what Senior Zhang said last night was to test me? While Lu Hanhuan was thinking, Xiao Hua had already walked more than 100 feet away. Then he turned his head and asked meaningfully, Sect Master Lu? Aren't you going to the Yulan Palace? Yes. Lu Hanhuan hurriedly moved his body and accompanied Xiao Hua, flying all the way to the Yulan Palace. At this moment, the Yulan Palace was completely silent. Nearly 10,000 children were sitting cross-legged in several areas. The situation was similar to last night. Seeing Xiao Hua and Lu Hanhuan come in, all the disciples of Chanhe sect bowed and said, Greetings Senior Zhang, greetings Sect Master. Wait for me. Xiao Hua looked around and waved his hand to indicate that he should get up. Lu Hanhuan said in a low voice, In order to shorten the time, Junior gathered all the disciples who are waiting to be selected here. Senior only needs to point out which disciples are suitable. Teach a man to fish rather than give him a fish. Sect Master Lu, you are a little impatient. Xiao Hua said with a smile, Leave behind 500 disciples who are waiting to be selected. Send the rest out of the Yulan Palace. Then, find another 50 disciples of the Yulan Palace and let them comprehend the secret technique I gave you last night. Since I am going to stay in Chanhe sect for a while, I might as well teach you all the secret technique. Senior. Lu Hanhuan said in a low voice, almost choking with sobs. In his life, other than his master, there was no other cultivator who treated him like this, right? Oh, don't tell me you didn't make arrangements last night and didn't let Xiaofeng choose the disciples of the Yulan Palace to start comprehending the secret technique of selecting spiritual roots. Xiao Hua smiled at Lu Hanhuan and asked. Lu Hanhuan bowed respectfully and said, Senior Zhang, Junior knows that Senior's cultivation is important, so I was afraid to disturb Senior. But Junior didn't expect Senior to be so patient with my Chanhe sect. Junior feels ashamed. Tisk. Xiao Hua waved his hand and said, Don't think of me as too noble. I'm just using the disciples of your Chanhe sect as an experiment to see how to modify the cultivation method and how to adapt to this mutated spiritual energy. When Lu Hanhuan heard this, he was stunned at first, but then he became even more respectful. He smiled and said, Senior, please wait for a moment. Junior will make arrangements. Then Lu Hanhuan asked Xiaofeng and Yun Tsongyu to come over. After giving the order, Xiaofeng and Yun Tsongyu were also overjoyed. Yun Tsongyu flew back to arrange for the disciples to bring the extra children out of the Yulan Palace. Xiaofeng accompanied Lu Hanhuan and reported, Sect Master, Senior Zhang Jr. has already selected 30 disciples last night and let them comprehend the secret technique. Junior and Vice Palace Master Yun also took a look. This secret technique isn't amazing, but But the so-called spiritual roots, the so-called mutated spiritual roots, it's really hard for us to understand. Moreover, we were in a hurry to refine those testing artifacts, so it wasn't easy to prepare them. So, I'm here today. Xiaohua said unhurriedly. I'm going to teach you little by little, including how to refine instruments and even how to refine pills. Good, good. Xiaofeng was not the only one who was overjoyed. Even Lu Hanhuan lost his composure. The two of them could only nod like chickens pecking at rice. Xiaohua changed the topic and said, however, I have a request. Senior, please tell us. As long as the Chanha sect can do it, we'll definitely do it. Lu Hanhuan said, his eyes almost looking at the moon in the distance. Chanha sect can't hide these refining techniques, pill refining tricks, and even the modified cultivation methods. You must make them public. Of course you can keep your own cultivation methods. Xiaohua's request surprised Lu Hanhuan. Xiaofeng jumped up and shouted, Senior, these cultivation methods are yours. How can you just make them public? Xiaohua looked at the warlike Taoist cultivator and said, Xiaofeng, you have to know that with the change in the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, Taoism is in a period of depression and decline. At this time, cultivation is no longer important. The survival of Taoism is the key. These cultivation techniques might be superficial, but they were still sparks. They could attract the attention of others and allow others to use them as a reference. This was much more important than simply allowing the Chanhe sect to rise. Also, don't worry. If the cultivation methods come from Chanhe sect will definitely be famous. Similarly, if nothing unexpected happens, Chanhe sect will definitely be comparable to the fallen celestial sect in the future. Okay. Xiaofeng shrugged and said, anyway, these cultivation methods and secret techniques belong to you. Senior, you can do whatever you want with them. Lu Hanhuan smiled and said, Senior, I'll take these cultivation methods to the auction house. This is a way to make it public, right? Of course, of course. Xiaohua said with a smile, this is the safest way and the best way to attract people's attention. If you give it away for nothing, people will treat it as trash. Only if you pay enough crystals will they really take it seriously. Thank you, Senior. Lu Hanhuan had no other way to express his gratitude except to thank him. He seemed to have seen the rise of Chanhe sect like the rising sun in the near future. After half the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, the arrangements in the Magnolia Palace had been completed. The 500 children were divided into 10 groups and sat there obediently. The 30 or so disciples that had been selected by Yun Tsongyu and the 10 or so disciples that had been sent over from other places were gathered together and waiting respectfully. Xiaohua had already seen that except for Yuehua Nua Yeqing, Lu Qingyu and the other disciples of Yulan Hall whom he had met once were all among the 50 disciples. Obviously, Lu Hanhuan had seen through Xiaohua's nostalgia. Xiaohua still walked to the center of Yulan Hall. Before he could speak, the 50 disciples hurriedly bowed and saluted. Senior, thank you for your guidance. Yes. Xiaohua nodded and said, the so-called spiritual root is not something that can be involved in Taoism cultivation. You all only need to know. Subsequently, Xiaohua explained the secret technique to distinguish spiritual roots in detail, and according to the situation of each disciple, he explained in detail how to use it. This secret technique to distinguish spiritual roots was difficult to grasp even for Fortune Gate disciples, let alone Chanhe sect disciples. Even people as strong as Xia Feng and Yun Tsongyu seemed to have grasped the secret technique, but if they were to use it on the children in front of them, they felt that they had no idea where to start. However, Xiaohua was not in a hurry. Taoism cultivators practiced cultivation techniques from a young age. This secret technique was also a cultivation technique, but there were some soul techniques in it that made these cultivators feel at a loss. Once they were proficient, they would naturally be able to use it. Furthermore, Xiaohua's target was not the disciples of the Chanhe sect. After he explained the secret technique and gave them some pointers, he began to carefully investigate the 500 children left behind in the Magnolia Hall waiting to be selected. Xiaohua's attentiveness made Lu Hanhuan very surprised. Not only did Xiaohua examine the children's meridians, hearts, lungs, muscles, etc., he also examined the children's Naiwan Palace, Middle Dantian and Lower Dantian. He even asked with interest about the children's background, living habits, and other things that had nothing to do with cultivation. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, give it as a reward, and... Chapter 4863. While Xiaohua was inspecting the disciples in the hall, he found that someone from the Chanhe school was already able to use the secret technique. However, this person surprised Xiaohua. This disciple was not a nascent soul cultivator like Xia Feng, nor was it a golden core cultivator like Hong Feng. It was Nuo Yeqing, a foundation establishment cultivator. Xiao Hua was pleasantly surprised. He let Nuo Yeqing try it out on a few children who were waiting to be selected. Although there were some mistakes at the beginning, after Xiao Hua pointed out a few more tricks, Nuo Yeqing was already able to successfully select the children with spirit roots. Moreover, her judgment of the spirit roots was also correct. Good. Xiao Hua patted Nuo Yeqing's shoulder and smiled. You really do have some fate with this old man. I'll leave the task of teaching Palace Master Xia and Vice Palace Master Yun to you. Xia Feng and Yun Songyu had very awkward expressions. Xiao Hua couldn't help but smile. He naturally wouldn't let a nascent soul cultivator lose face. While he had Nuo Yeqing report to Lu Qingyu in detail, he called Lu Hanhuan, Xia Feng, Yun Songyu and the others in front of a child with an earth-type spiritual root that Nuo Yeqing had just selected. He carefully discussed with them how to refine the magic tool. After Lu Hanhuan and the others memorized the magic tool's formation and the secret technique, Lu Qingyu and the others gradually understood the secret technique. One by one they gradually began to enter the hall. Xiao Hua didn't neglect them. He had each of them be responsible for the test of 10 children waiting to be selected. As for Lu Hanhuan and the others, they went to refine the magic tool. 10 children, it wasn't a lot, but it wasn't a small number either. Under Xiao Hua's occasional pointers, Lu Qingyu and the others repeatedly practiced. When night came, most of the 50 Chanhe school disciples were able to control the secret technique skillfully. They were able to select the children with spiritual roots that they were responsible for. Seeing that everyone was in high spirits, Xiao Hua reminded them. Let's stop here for today. The children are tired. Let them go back and rest. After saying that, Xiao Hua no longer paid attention to the Yulan Hall disciples and walked out of the hall. All the disciples didn't dare to neglect Xiao Hua and respectfully sent him off. When Xiao Hua returned to the flowing palace, he closed his eyes and rested for a moment. Then a smile appeared on his face. He sent out his spiritual sense and carefully read the jade strip that Lu Hanhuan took out yesterday. There weren't many things recorded in the Yilin continent in this jade slip. Instead, there were many records of the Chanhe sect's establishment and development plans, as well as the deeds of the previous sect masters and famous disciples. Xiao Hua didn't have any impatience and patiently looked through it. In the following 10 days, Xiao Hua guided the Chanhe sect disciples in the Yulan Hall to familiarize themselves with the selection Dharma art. He also guided Lu Hanhuan, Xia Feng, and the others in refining the selection Dharma artifact. At the same time, he asked Lu Hanhuan to take out the Chanhe sect's cultivation technique and modify it bit by bit according to his understanding of the laws of heaven and earth. When night fell, Xiao Hua returned to the flowing hall and checked the manuals of the Chanhe sect. From time to time he would call Lu Hanhuan over to ask. It was during these fulfilling days that Yu Zhuohong returned from the auction. There was no need for Zhuohong to report too much. Xiao Hua looked at the excitement in Lu Hanhuan's eyes and knew that the Chanhe sect had gained a lot from this auction. Yu Zhuohong roughly explained the situation of the auction and took out the crystals, jade slips and other items that he had obtained and placed them in front of Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua casually took the jade slip and checked it with his divine sense. He smiled and said, "Thank you for your trouble, Elder Yu." Yu Zhuohong had long known about Xiao Hua's actions. Now he was even more respectful. He bowed and said, "Compared to what Senior has done for my Chanhe sect, what Junior has done is really insignificant. Moreover, this auction only involved cultivators from the Fengyan nation and a few nearby nations. The owner of the auction didn't seem to be present. Junior didn't help Senior find out about the Defeat You Immortal Alliance. I've really disappointed Senior." It's fine, it's fine." Xiao Hua waved his hand and said, "If you can't do it this time, there will be a next time. This disciple selection secret technique is so popular. If the Chanhe sect doesn't take advantage of this opportunity to make a big profit, you've really let this old man down." Yes. Yu Zhuohong's face also flushed red. In his memory, the Chanhe sect hadn't been so popular in the auction for a long time. "Senior?" Lu Hanhuan, who was at the side, said with some surprise. Junior boldly asks, "Where exactly is the Defeat You Immortal Alliance that you're looking for in the Yilin continent?" In Junior's impression, my Yilin continent seems to have 2 cultivation alliances, the Tao Alliance and the Heaven Alliance. These 2 alliances are formed by the sects and families of dozens of nations. The Fengyan nation should belong to the Tao Alliance in the northeast. When Junior was still a low-level cultivator, the Tao Alliance and the Heaven Alliance had some disputes and wars. Even within the alliance there were often fights. However, due to the great change in the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, these fights have become fewer and fewer, not to mention large-scale battles. Hee. Xiao Hua put down the jade slip in his hand and said with a smile, "This old man doesn't know where the Defeat You Immortal Alliance is, but according to this old man's speculation, the Tseng Immortal Alliance should be in the east of the Yilin continent, not far from the Wumeng mountain range. As for the Tao Alliance and the Heaven Alliance, this old man has already seen them from your Chanhe sect's records. However, this old man is a little puzzled. When this old man asked about the Defeat You Immortal Alliance, why didn't you mention the Tao Alliance?" Lu Hanhuan's face was a little embarrassed as he said in a low voice, "I won't hide it from Senior. In the early years of the Fengyan nation, there were many sects like my Chanhe sect. My Fengyan nation belongs to the Tao Alliance in name, but only the Fallen Immortal sect, Chongwei sect, Supa Mountain, and Liyan sect can appear in the Tao Alliance. My Chanhe sect seems to have participated in the war between the Tao Alliance and the Immortal Alliance once 100,000 years ago, but never again. If Senior didn't mention the Immortal Alliance, Junior would have almost forgotten about these two Tao Alliance." "That's not all," Xiao Hua said with a smile. "Looking at the records in your sect, the Tao Alliance has 81 Immortal Alliances, hundreds and thousands of countries and 120 cultivation families. The Fengyan nation is also the country closest to the northeast of the Yilin continent. Even the Fallen Immortal sect doesn't seem to be in the top 100 of the Tao Alliance, right?" Eehee. Lu Hanhuan laughed and said with an indifferent look, "So, it's normal for Junior to not remember the Tao Alliance and the Heaven Alliance. Perhaps the sect leader of the Fallen Immortal sect has already forgotten about the Tao Alliance." "No." Xiao Hua shook his head slightly and said, "You're wrong. Although the change in the heaven and earth spiritual qi had changed the development of the Tao sects, and regardless of whether it was the Tao Alliance or the Heaven Alliance, they were both declining rapidly. However, this was also an era where new forces were emerging. Whoever could quickly grasp a new cultivation method or a new method of selecting disciples would be able to lead the Yilin continent. Moreover, don't worry, in the Yilin continent that you can't see, no matter whether it's between the Tao Alliance and the Heaven Alliance, or within the Tao Alliance and the Heaven Alliance, the same battles and killings still exist." Hiss. Hearing this, Lu Hanhuan couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air, as if he had understood something. His face instantly turned pale, but he still argued, But the cultivation technique of the Heaven Alliance seems to be different from that of the Tao Alliance." "Different?" Xiao Hua was slightly stunned, but he instantly understood. He thought to himself, the Tao Alliance cultivates the nascent soul, and the Heaven Alliance and the Tao Alliance are opposing each other. If I'm not wrong, they're probably cultivating the primordial soul. It's a pity that the Chanhe sect is too small, and there are no records of this at all. Senior. Yu Zhuohong also thought of something and his face turned pale as well. He looked around naturally and said in shock, "You mean that the Chanhe sect is now? The Chanhe sect is now in a place where a huge opportunity lies." Xiao Hua pinched his chin and answered with narrowed eyes, "If sect leader Lu can grasp this opportunity, the Chanhe sect in the future will not be the Chanhe sect now. I believe that even the Fallen Immortal sect will have to look up to the Chanhe sect in the future. However, if sect leader Lu can't grasp this opportunity, the Chanhe sect will be in extreme danger." At this moment, Lu Hanhuan already had no mood to listen to what Xiao Hua was saying. His previous passion was as if it had been doused by ice water, and it was chilling to the core. He already knew how dangerous the situation was for him and the Chanhe sect. It was true that the modified cultivation method was good, but a man's wealth was his own ruin. If the Chanhe sect had this beautiful jade, it would be known by other sects sooner or later. Who knows, a huge disaster might befall them one day. At this point, Xiao Hua said embarrassedly, "This is also my fault. I just came out of seclusion, and I don't know much about the situation in the Yilin continent. It was only these few days that I found out about the current situation in the Yilin continent after reading the ancient books." Yu Zhuohong pondered for a moment, and the paleness on his face faded slightly. He looked at Lu Hanhuan and said, "Sect leader, what Senior said makes sense. Opportunities will never come for no reason. If there is no huge disaster, how can there be a huge opportunity? Previously, when I entered the auction, I was also a little afraid. However, when I was bidding for the secret technique, I understood. What Senior said earlier is really the way to solve this disaster. The Chanhe sect should make the secret technique and cultivation method public as soon as possible, and even join forces with the famous sects under the Taoist Union. This is the way for the Chanhe sect to protect ourselves." "Yes, this is a serious matter. I need to think carefully. Lu Hanhuan understood this. He thought for a while and nodded. Follow me to the Ming Xen Hall first and discuss with Elder Pang. After Elder Gao returns, we will make a decision. Oh? Elder Gao hasn't returned yet? Yu Zhuohong asked curiously. Although the Chanhe sect doesn't have a transportation array directly to the fallen immortal sect, it shouldn't take so long. Sigh. Lu Hanhuan sighed. Elder Gao is an elder in the Chanhe sect, but in the fallen immortal sect she is just an ordinary nascent soul cultivator. How can she casually meet the sect leader of the fallen immortal sect? The array flag of the heavenly cycle demon subduing star array can't be revealed casually. I'm afraid Elder Gao won't be back soon. But... Yu Zhuohong wanted to say something, but when he saw Xiaohua beside him, he swallowed his words. Then he took out a jade slip from his chest and handed it to Xiaohua respectfully. Senior, although I didn't find out any information about the fallen immortal sect, I heard from a few cultivators that the transportation route from the Fengyan Kingdom to the Qie Kingdom, which is the border of the Taoist Union. The Wuming Mountain Range is in the east of the Yilin continent. If you want to go to the Wuming Mountain Range, you have to at least reach the Qie Kingdom first. In addition, I also bought the topographic map of the Yilin continent and the power distribution of some of the cultivation sects in the Heaven Alliance. Senior, please take your time to check. P.S. Fellow cultivators who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian. Vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, give it as a reward. And Chapter 4864. Very good. Xiaohua took the jade scroll with a smile and looked at the crystals in front of him. He asked Lu Hanhuan, Sect Master Lu, do you have any extra storage bracelets? Yes. Lu Hanhuan hurriedly took out a storage bracelet and handed it to Xiaohua respectfully. Junior storage bracelet's quality is not particularly good. It doesn't matter. Xiaohua took it with a smile and said, I'm just using it temporarily. If the quality is good, it would be a waste. Seeing Xiaohua put the jade scroll into the storage bracelet, Lu Hanhuan and Yu Zhuohong looked at each other and prepared to leave. Xiaohua waved his hand and gave most of the crystals to Lu Hanhuan. Sect Master Lu, I don't need so many crystals. I'll give these to your Chanhe sect. Lu Hanhuan still wanted to decline, but at this moment, with a swoosh, a fist-sized cyan crane-like object flew in from outside the hall. It drew a faint arc and landed in front of Lu Hanhuan's eyes. Lu Hanhuan was stunned and looked at Xiaohua and Yu Zhuohong. He raised his hand and pointed at the green crane's forehead. Pung. The green crane exploded and Gao Cheng's voice came from inside, reporting to Sect Master, I've brought back the fallen immortal sect disciples. Sect Master, please send the disciples to welcome them. Elder Gao has finally returned. Lu Hanhuan laughed loudly, looking as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. Then Lu Hanhuan did not say anything else and kept the crystals. He said respectfully, Senior, please cultivate here. I'll go welcome the fallen immortal sect disciples. Go. Xiaohua waved his hand and Lu Hanhuan hurriedly left with Yu Zhuohong. Xiaohua sat down and used his divine perception to check the jade scroll that Yu Zhuohong brought back. He smiled and thought to himself, that's right, this Yilin continent is the other side of the Dawn Rain continent. The terrain of this Yilin continent is almost the same as what Feng Wu got from the Great Sage Hall. It's just that the corner of the Dawn Rain continent is missing. Moreover, the Yilin continent has the Dao Alliance and the Heaven Alliance, which coincides with the name of the Heavenly Dao Realm. This Yilin continent must be the Heavenly Dao Realm that the Swift Cherry Supreme Sage mentioned. What's special is that the Dao sects in Yilin continent are indeed very prosperous. It's hard for the Dawn Rain continent to reach it. There was actually a transmission channel from the remote Fengyan Kingdom to the so-called Qie Kingdom. Although he did not know how to get to Wuming Mountain from Qie Kingdom, there should be other teleportation channels in the territory of the Heavenly Alliance, right? As long as I use the crystal stones, I can easily reach the Wuming Mountain range. Looks like the trip to the Yilin continent will be much smoother than the 10,000 Demon Realm. A trace of regret appeared in Xiaohua's heart when he thought of success. He regretted pushing the Chanhe sect into the limelight. He also regretted giving the Chanhe sect the secret technique to select disciples before he recovered his divine ability. What about the modified cultivation method? Should we give it to them? Xiaohua secretly asked himself. After these days of inspection and comprehension, Xiaohua already had some knowledge of the cultivation methods below the nascent soul stage. He could record them in a jade slip and hand them over to the Chanhe sect at any time. However, whether these cultivation methods were a blessing or a curse to Lu Hanhuan was not something Xiaohua could grasp. Let's see Lu Hanhuan's choice. Xiaohua quickly made a decision. If he is ambitious, there is no harm in giving these cultivation methods to him. But if he wants to stay in the Fengyan kingdom, these cultivation methods, there is no need to give them to him. Soon after, Xiaohua waved his hand. He didn't need to use any technique at all. The candle-like magic tool that had stopped on one of the corona rose up and landed on the shadow of the other corona's needle. Shwa. When another rainbow appeared, Xiaohua casually took out a jade slip from inside and carefully looked at it. After a long time, Xiaohua suddenly raised his eyebrows and looked outside the hall. There was a smile on his face and he said loudly, "Let him in." In a moment, Nuo Yecheng quickly walked in from outside the hall and bowed. "Junior greets Senior Zhang. Please forgive me for disturbing Senior's meditation." "Hee, get up." Xiaohua floated up and waved his hand. "Yecheng, do you have something urgent? Why did you come here at this time?" Nuo Yecheng bit her lips and looked at Xiaohua. "Senior, Junior wants to ask Senior a question. After Senior answers, Junior will tell Senior in detail." Xiaohua raised his eyebrows and asked curiously, "Say it, what do you want to ask?" "Senior." Nuo Yecheng looked around and asked in a low voice, "Can Sect Master hear Junior's words?" "He doesn't dare." Xiaohua said with a smile, "You can ask. It's like this." Nuo Yecheng thought for a moment and said, "Junior heard Senior say that you want to go to the Wuming Mountain Range. Do you want to go to the Wuming Mountain Range? Or do you want to go to the Wuming Mountain Range?" "Oh." Xiaohua was dumbfounded. He originally thought that Nuo Yecheng had received instructions from Lu Qingyu or Hong Feng, and had come to look for him in search of a modified cultivation method. He never thought that he would actually ask about the Wuming Mountain Range. Xiaohua didn't hide it and answered, "I want to go to the Wuming Mountain Range. However, it's fine if you don't know why I want to go there." "Senior, can you take Junior with you?" Nuo Yecheng's face was filled with joy, and she hurriedly begged with a kind of eagerness in her eyes. "You want to go to the Wuming Mountain Range?" Xiaohua was even more puzzled and asked, "Why do you want to go to the Wuming Mountain Range? Besides, if you want to go, you can go anytime. Why do you want to go with me?" "Junior has a reason to go to the Wuming Mountain Range, but Junior wants to keep it a secret for now. Of course, Senior will have to keep it a secret for me." Nuo Yecheng knew that Xiaohua liked to be straightforward, so she simply told him everything. "When we get to the Wuming Mountain Range, Junior will tell Senior everything. Junior has told Master about this before, but Master said that the distance between the Wuming Mountain Range and the Xingyun Mountain Range is more than 1,000,000 miles. It's too dangerous, and even he doesn't have the confidence to reach the Wuming Mountain Range, so he doesn't agree with Junior going." "Hee, now that you know that I'm going, you want to go with me?" Xiaohua asked with a smile. Nuo Yecheng lowered her head in embarrassment and nodded slightly. "Was it your idea, or was it Lu Qingyu's idea?" Xiaohua asked with interest. Nuo Yecheng hurriedly raised her head and said, "This has nothing to do with Master. He's comprehending the secret skill that Senior gave him." "You're going to the Wuming Mountain Range with me, so how are you going to come back?" Xiaohua asked meaningfully, "Or, you don't plan to come back at all?" "This." Nuo Yecheng looked a little flustered. She hesitated for a moment before answering, "Senior, I'll tell you everything before we get to the Wuming Mountain Range. At this time, I hope Senior won't force me." Yes, this old man understands. Xiaohua didn't understand why Nuo Yecheng wanted to go to the Wuming Mountain Range, but he still wanted to come. He replied, "I can't answer you now. Can you let me think about it first?" "Yes, I'm sorry for disturbing Senior. If Senior finds it difficult, just pretend that I didn't say anything." Nuo Yecheng hurriedly bowed and said, "I'll take my leave." Seeing Nuo Yecheng hastily turn around and leave, Xiaohua bitterly smiled and shook his head. He then picked up the jade slip. However, before Xiaohua could look at it for half an hour, boom boom boom. Outside the flowing time hall, a series of faint rumbling sounds resounded. Soon after, the light and shadow within the hall dimmed. The world spirit chi in the vicinity was like a whirlwind blowing towards the outside of the hall. After that, Xiaohua felt the entire hall begin to slightly tremble and sway. "What's going on?" Xiaohua was surprised. Could it be that the fallen immortal sect disciples are dissatisfied with the Chanhe sect and have started to attack them? Thinking of this, Xiaohua got up and walked out of the passage hall slowly. Lu Hanhuan hurriedly flew out of the passage hall. He didn't dare to hesitate and ordered Yu Zhuohong, "Elder Yu, quickly send out my order. Send out the guest welcoming array to welcome the fallen immortal sect disciples." "Yes, sect master." After receiving the order, Yu Zhuohong hurriedly flew away. In less than half a cup of tea's time, Boom boom. Several rays of light appeared from Xingyun Ridge and rushed into the night sky, illuminating the area as bright as day. At the same time, groups of disciples in bright clothes flew out of the hall and lined up in a neat formation. They stood in front of the mountain gate of the Chanhe sect. There were thousands of disciples standing in midair. There were also some graceful female disciples holding pipa or flute in their hands. Following an old woman's hand gesture, the sound of strings and bamboo and the sound of zither started to sound slowly. Lu Hanhuan had already changed his clothes. He brought Yu Zhuohong and Pang Luxing out of the mountain gate and stood respectfully in midair. In the time it took to eat a meal in the night sky, a light boat flew over. This flying boat was only a few feet long. There were many runes engraved on the boat. A layer of faint red light shone out from these runes, illuminating the nearby night sky. In the faint red light, there was a sign floating in front of the flying boat that looked like a mountain range. It was very eye-catching. A low and almost inaudible rumbling sound came from this sign. Layers of heaven and earth spirit energy seeped out from the void and fell into this sign. Inside the flying boat, there were more than 10 cultivators in embroidered clothes. These cultivators all had dignified appearances and a heroic spirit. They emitted a faint fluctuation around their bodies. When this fluctuation landed on the flying boat, the faint red color of the flying boat became even brighter. Lu Hanhuan saw the extremely eye-catching mountain range sign in the night sky and a smile appeared on his face. He urged his body forward to welcome it. Yu Zhuohong and Pang Luxing didn't dare to be negligent and followed carefully. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a month, vote for a recommendation, collect, reward, and thank you for all forms of support. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.